Hello and welcome to Have a Beer Reviews, where I invite you to have a beer with me while I talk about movies, games, and in here today we're going to talk about sitcoms, a tier list rating of British sitcoms. But before that, please subscribe to help support the channel, and hoping Steve-O to get up to 100 subscribers by the time 2005 is out. That would be lovely if you can help me do that by smashing that subscribe button. That would be much appreciated. And also, please like to help get the video out there. So, as I say, in this one, we are going to be doing a tier list and giving our opinions on a wide variety of British comedy films that have come out in our lifetimes, pretty much. And with a few old classics thrown in there at the start as well. So I'm joined by a man who has very strong opinions on British comedy, I think it's fair to say. And if you're a viewer of my second channel, you'll know who he is, because he's a friend from that verse of content. Steve-O, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, good evening. Looking forward to this specific episode. Always good to talk about comedy, sitcoms, and probably my second love in life, maybe if not my number one love in life. A bit like with what Ricky and Steve say regarding their passion for comedy and music. They just can't decide which one's top.
One, yeah,
it's very difficult for me to decide what I love more, musical or comedy. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion point today, Gary.
It will be, yeah. So you suggested we might just introduce ourselves to people who don't know. So we're both, I mean, the most basic stuff, we're both British. Obviously, that's what we're doing, British sitcoms. We're both in our 40s, so most of the sitcoms we're going to talk about are going to be 80s, 90s, maybe a few in the some in the 2000s. I'm a psychologist. My sort of taste in comedy, I don't like slapstick particularly, but I like, I don't know, I don't really think I have a taste. I think I'm quite varied. I like surrealism quite a bit. Things like, well, I won't say anything, but surrealism, I like a good story, as long as it's got, laughs along the way. Steve, what's your sort of style?
Well, you mentioned slapstick there. Some of my favourite comedy is slapstick humour with the likes of Life's Too Short. I think Ricky and Steve were absolute geniuses when it came to using Warwick Davis in Life's Too Short. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Lauren Hardy is up there with my favourite comedy duo. I think their stuff is absolutely hilarious. Even watching it today, I'm legitimately laughing aloud at how good the performances are. But if you're talking modern day stuff, really my kind of humour is more the focusing on real life, shall we say, the more humorous takes on what happens in the worlds that we all live in.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll just go over what comedies we've chosen. So the comedies we've chosen, Steve-O put out a post on X, on his X account related to our second channel, where he's got about 1,000 or so followers, and most of these were suggestions that I took directly from that. Basically, if one of us had seen it and, it wasn't going to be completely difficult for us to talk about it, I put it in there, and I also added in a couple of classics, like the first one we're going to talk about. So we're only going to talk about sitcoms from the 90s, with one or two from the 70s thrown in there. And we're only going to cover sitcoms. We're not covering sketch shows. So if you're thinking why Little Britain, The Far Show, the old Harry Enfield show, why are they not in here? We're only covering sitcoms. I mean, sometimes it's a bit of a false dichotomy anyway. Do you know, like, some of them I wouldn't really be sure whether or not they're a sitcom. Like, things like Only Fools and Horses are clearly a sitcom. But then there are some that kind of like border, aren't there?
The clue's in the title, isn't it? It's situational comedy. It's a sitcom. It's like you mentioned, they're sketch shows.
Yeah.
Like the likes of Mr. Bean, as an example, is literally just a sketch show. Trigger Happy TV is a sketch show. Face Jacker and so on and so forth. They're quite literally, as you quite said, without wanting to repeat it, but it's true.
But Mr. Bean has a through storyline. You could maybe argue it's.
When was the last time you watched Mr. Bean? Because I watched it very recently, and I don't think it has a through line at all, to be honest with you.
It's a contained story within each episode. I mean, it may not be a particularly complex story. Like, I don't know, he gets unchanged in front of the blind man at the beach. That episode does involve
Which
a
is
story.
hilarious.
Yeah, it's good.
That is
It's good. Yeah.
And of course, the one which is memed a lot in FPL regarding copying someone's work, but it's not directly a sitcom per se. It's just sketches.
Yeah.
And that's craft.
So the rating scale for anyone who's not looked at the tier list before, D is rubbish. Never want to watch it again. Absolute crap. C, I would say, is below average. I don't want to watch it, but it's not the absolute worst thing in the world. B, I would say, is slightly above average. You could maybe argue it's average, but I'd watch it. Probably even enjoy it sometimes, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. A is this is good stuff, basically. Not absolutely top legendary tier. It's not amazing. It didn't redefine the world, but it makes us laugh out loud. And S is basically comedy gold. Stuff that is absolute classic. And if it's not a classic, it made us laugh so much, we feel it should be considered a classic. Did you say that about Rand's up the scales, Steve-O? You happy with that?
Yeah, I think, I've watched a few of your tier lists and various other people's tier lists before, and I think that pretty much summarises everything, to be honest. I think we should just crack on with it, because I'm really looking forward just to delve deep into these particular sitcoms. Because like a joke with you on a voice message is always a bit facetious, but a lot of them, I've probably seen one episode and gone, this is terrible, or I watched it when I was 8 years old and it was hilarious at the time, and I've watched it since 20 odd, 30 odd years later. I'm realizing, this is rubbish. But we'll get onto that in a second.
So most of these, both me and Steve have seen at least a few times. One of them, I have to admit, I don't think either of us can have much to say on, but I'm going to give a very, very brief description, like 1 or 2 sentences. I'll say what I think. Steve will say what he thinks. We'll give our own tier list ratings, and then we have to agree on one for each one. There are a few in here that there's at least 2 or 3 in here that I don't feel I know enough about in order to give them a tier list rating, in which case I'll hand out, we'll just go with Steve-O's, and vice versa, Steve. If there's anything you don't feel, then we'll go with my tier list rating. Yeah, okay. All right, I think that's everything. So let's step in. So we are going chronologically by when they came out, I think. That's how I've tried to arrange this. So the very first one, Steve-O, and this is really in there for history. I think it's described probably as the first ever British situational comedy. Certainly when I hear people talk about comedies, so we're going right back to the 1960s here. And that's Steptoe and Son, which, as I say, I've largely included out of respect. If it is the first, if you know of a sitcom, that predates this, please let us know in the comments. I did watch reruns of this when I was younger. It's mainly a clash. Him and his... by the way, don't you think he looks like Jamie Vardy?
Which one?
The dad. He always looks like Jamie Vardy. Somebody pointed that out to me once, and I've never been able to get rid of it.
Very dubious link there.
Yeah, so it's basically a conflict between an old man and his dad, who work as bin men or Bowen. They collect rubbish basically and sell it off, I think. There's the nephew, the son, is like more of a modern man type, and the father's like an old fashioned type. It's probably a bit outdated now. There are some funny moments in it, but of course it is, I'm not going to say it's my favourite, but of course it is very important in terms of, at least as far as I'm aware, being the first British sitcom. Steve-O, have you seen much of this down the years?
This is going to be one of those, what I'm going to say a lot, where it's a comedy of its time. I think one of the main reasons why this probably was so successful is because, as you stated, there was only a few channels available. This is a comedy. It probably represented life at the time. But for me, for a lot of these shows, I'm genuinely thinking about the last time I would have seen them, whether it was, skipping through channels and then it's, oh yeah, there's a Steptoe and Son. Let's just see why everybody finds this so funny. And you go on it, and this is just my opinion. It's just, the only reason why I know about this is because of someone like my dad. And even then, I don't even think he liked Steptoe and Son off the top of my head.
No, it might
and for me, no, this specific sitcom, I have literally no opinion on whatsoever. I appreciate its legacy. I get that. And what it allowed further down the line, people that were probably influenced by it. But overall, Gary, for me, Steptoe and Son means absolutely nothing to me in the slightest, unfortunately.
So where would you stick it? Just give us a...
Honestly, a D.
A D. Okay, all right.
Truth be told, a D, because it has no significance to anything I can think of. Like you stated, it's just two blokes that, you know, from off the top of my head, are living in a very dingy, horrible little area of, I'm assuming, London. And it's always been in black and white, obviously. But for me, it has had literally zero impact on my life whatsoever. So yeah, that's why I put it in a D.
But thinking about it, I'm thinking about so many sitcoms are men in particular in shitty situations. Like two men stuck at the bottom of the ladder in West London makes me instantly think about Bottom, which we're going to get on later. You know, so it probably did inspire. I would probably go a C. I don't hate it, but I think I'm going to raise it up to a B, if you'll agree with me, Steve-O, purely out of respect for the legacy factor.
Again, I'm not going to sit here and argue with that. A B, though?
All right, let's go C. Let's go C.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to put it in B purely out of respect, yeah. All right, so Steve-O.
Who the hell in the X post put Steptoe and Son? They must have been taking the mick, surely.
It might have been one of the ones I added in for respect. Respect. Okay, so here is one I know you do have a very strong opinion, Steve-O. I'm going to let you introduce this one. Describe it to me briefly and then what you think.
Fawlty Towers. Well, one of the greatest sitcoms ever. I think it's won so many awards in the sense of from TV shows, which is what's the greatest British sitcom ever, and number one is usually Fawlty Towers. Essentially, it's just about a hotel manager and his wife running a hotel, and the absolute ridiculous scenarios that he got involved with when it comes to running a hotel, based on a real life experience when the Monty Python crew went down to Torquay and stayed in.
Goodness.
Yeah, how do you not know? How do you not know that?
You know, lots of things I don't know about Fawlty Towers. You take the mickey out of me for.
It's no longer there now. Glen Eagles is now actually been demolished. It was demolished about 3 to 5 years ago.
That's a golf course, isn't it?
I don't know, Gary. But the point being is that yeah, they stayed in the hotel there when they were filming a sketch for Monty Python. And the hotel manager there was essentially just an utter lunatic, complete paranoid schizophrenic, essentially. Right. And John Cleese and the like just got absolute comedy gold out of it and just decided we have to make a show about this. And I think that's what I personally love about shows like Fawlty Towers, is that it's based on some form of reality. I know that Ricky and Steve, by the way, I'm going to mention them two a lot because they've had such a massive impact on my life, but
Ricky and Steve talk about,
Steve Merchant and Ricky Gervais. Yeah. Them two have spoken endlessly about the fact that the best comedy comes from real life.
Yeah.
And the observations that John Cleese made from this particular hotel, and then the ridiculous scenarios they can come up with within Fawlty Towers itself. This show, for me, from a slapstick point of view, everything is a 10 out of 10, in my opinion. The characters, you've got 4 main characters. You've got Sybil, Basil, who are married. You've then got Manuel, the waiter, and then you've got Polly,
who he was married to in real life, wasn't he?
Yes, them two were married, and then I think they got divorced within about 3 or 4 years. They weren't together for long. And they have created, in my opinion, a show which, to this day, you could show this to anybody and they will understand the humour. They will legitimately laugh out loud. Yes, okay, some of the things look a bit silly, i.e. that the walls occasionally move or whatever, but you got to remember this is from 1975, and I kind of just take that aside. I always use this as a wrestling terminology, which is, can I just suspend my disbelief, immerse myself into the world of Fawlty Towers, and just appreciate the humour and the comedy that's being presented to me? And the answer is yes. And I mean, this show I was watching must have been in the early 90s when they put them on repeats on BBC Two with my mum and dad. It clearly stuck with me. And then it was probably 10 years later in the early 2000s that I think it was BBC One or BBC Two, they decided to re-show them. And it was a really big, I remember this now, it was a really big thing at the time. It was like, oh my God, they're re-showing Fawlty Towers on terrestrial TV in the early 2000s. And I was in absolute stitches, bought it on DVD, and me and my brother just watched it episode after episode after episode, just repeat. The whole show is so quotable, and it's just it's such an intelligent comedy as well, especially Andrew Sachs that plays Manuel. His performance as a Spanish waiter is just tantamount to genius. It's utterly incredible. And the witticisms that Basil and Sybil come out with throughout the whole of the show are, you really do need to be listening out for these undertones and what they're saying. And, you know, it's quite dark in a way in which you've got Basil who's trying to live a life of a upper class citizen and thinks he's above the working class, despite the fact that's his background. And he's always trying to impress the upper class, and he just cannot ever get it right. And it's like Ricky Gervais said, the best comedy is for seeing somebody who is trying their best to appease something that they will never be. And Basil Fawlty himself as an actual character, and John Cleese's performance up there is up there with the likes of Del Boy, David Brent, Mark from Peep Show. It is just an absolute masterclass. And for me, Gary, this has to be S, because the influence on sitcom / comedy throughout the 20 years plus since it was released. I mean, I can't think of the top of my head right now, but certainly.
I'm thinking about one when I was writing my answers to this yesterday. Thinking of sort of a narcissist. I don't know if you call him a narcissist character, but that sort of central character that crazy stuff happens around. I'm thinking Hyacinth Bouquet from Keeping Up Appearances, Brittas from the British Empire, where my notes actually that, and I think they very different comedies, but that kind of anarchic thing that, you know, anarchic things that's happen around him. That's quite similar to his character in that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the whole show, every single episode is focused on something that Basil is trying to accomplish and fails miserably.
Yeah.
And even to this day, like, me and my brother quote Fawlty Towers endlessly. I even watched literally just 2-3 days ago the best of Fawlty Towers, and I'm still laughing my head off at some of the scenes. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some scenes which are overplayed, a bit like, you know, in The Office, the David Brent dance, where in isolation it's funny, but with context it's funnier. And certainly there are certain clips from Fawlty Towers where it's, yeah, I've seen this, it's I'm just going to skip this bit. There are other very funny moments, like, for argument's sake, when the rat's discovered in the very final episode, or for instance when the major's shooting his shotgun off in the bar area, and the hotel inspector's coming in. And just extraordinary. It's absolutely incredible, and it's just funny. It's just funny for funny's sake. It's a bit like the Carry On films. Carry On films are so dated to today, but they are some of the funniest films you will see, from such a simple, basic type of humor, but it works for everybody and you can just get it. And it's the same with Fawlty Towers. Fawlty Towers is that kind of humor which, again, an idiot can watch, understand, and enjoy.
Let me cut in, because I am not a big fan of Fawlty Towers. Now, I think some of that is because my dad really liked it, and I didn't really want to like what my dad used to read. He also used to really like Morecambe and Wise, but I couldn't bloody stand. And I do think part of it is sort of a rebellious streak, but also I'm not that much of a fan of slapstick humour. But for me, this would be about. I'm not saying I don't hate it or anything. You know, I've watched it back and it will get a laugh out of me. But for me, this would probably be a B. But I mean, we are literally this one on the next one in Channel 4's greatest comedies of all time. Only Fools and Horses was first, and this was second. So I think we have to put it in S tier, don't we?
I think the next two are S tier, to be completely
I mean
frank
the next one I would put in S tier as well. But so for me it's a B. But
why don't, just of interest?
Yeah.
Why don't you like Fawlty Towers? Well, apart from the fact that they're slightly rebellious against your dad, that aside.
Well, I think that stopped me watching it and probably stopped me giving it a chance. I mean, I may have watched it through once when I was younger, and it did seem a bit dated to me even then. In the, I don't know, would have been mid to late 90s.
Wow.
And it's just
That's really sad to hear, because for me, it's, along with his films that he did, like Clockwise. Clockwise is just essentially a Fawlty Towers spin-off. And again, Clockwise is just such a funny, silly film.
What do you think of Monty Python? I was never that big a fan of that.
I cannot stand it.
Yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get it. I think it's too stupid, the humour. I know Jason, my co-host from my other channel, he loves Monty Python. I just legitimately don't get it, Gary. I've tried to watch it and I'm like, nah.
There are bits in it I like. There's the odd sketch that I find hilarious, but then the rest of it, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, right, let's get back to our tier list. So this was voted the greatest comedy of the 20th century. So we're moving on from the 70s to the 80s here, obviously. This came out very early in the 80s, so I'll just read from my notes. So obviously it follows Del Boy, the sort of wide boy, pretends he has a French accent, his stupid little brother, who's actually fairly intelligent, Rodney, and then Grandad / Albert, later after Grandad passed away. This ran for over 20 years, you know, although after about 10 years, it mainly did become Christmas specials pretty much every year, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think this is one we're going to agree on. This is legendary. It's probably up there with my top 5, certainly very close. I mean, the family are great, but also the characters, like Trigger, who we know someone called that as well, who, you know, obviously is a lot more intelligent than the Trigger character here. You know, the classic scenes, like when he leans on the bar and falls through it. Episodes, remember the heart attack one? Always that when the guy has a heart attack. He fakes a heart attack to get away with the money in the case. Anyway,
I've probably seen that.
So many brilliant episodes, but also emotions. It was almost like, as a young person, I remember crying when Rodney and Cassandra split up at some stage, because, you know, you followed them for so long. Yeah, I found it sad. The only downside probably is I did find some of the very later Christmas specials not that good. Like there's one I watched a couple of months ago about, they kind of like try and parody Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. But we're talking right at the end of the run. This has got to be S tier. But Steve, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Only Fools and Horses is one of those where I should go out of the way and watch it from start to finish. But I just feel I don't have. There is a lot. I'm fully aware of this, and I'm talking just this series. I'm not talking about the Christmas editions, but one of my fondest ones is actually Miami Twice. I think Miami Twice, one of the Christmas editions that came out in like 95, 96, is absolutely. Again, I'm going to be using the same words over and over. It's just genius. I think it's so funny and so clever, and a bit like
very bizarre, wasn't it? Because that's the one where he there's like a doppelganger, isn't it? Who's like the head of the mafia.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a very, very, very funny premise, and very similar to Fawlty Towers, where every single episode, the beginning links perfectly with the end, and it's a bit like when in the early 2000s with WWE or WWF at the time, where the beginning of the show would cumulate to the end, where it all fitted together. Yeah. Only Fools and Horses has that vibe as well, the same as with Miami Twice or whatever. But all the episodes, it just starts with some kind of contextual joke that's happening at the time, and then it concludes with the same joke but in a different manner. And certainly, you know, I define anybody to not be able to go onto YouTube and type in, for instance, like you've just mentioned, Trigger's funniest moments. And there are so many. Like I even watched one the other day, which was about.
Do you remember the one where he gets the award for the brush to keep having the same brush for 15 years. Yeah, I've only had 20 different tops and 30 different handles. Yeah.
Well, the other one is when he's helping Rodney and Rodney to park the car, and eventually parks up, and he goes, "Can't park there, Dave." Incredible.
I don't want to just go over the thing, but do you remember when he goes, by the way, Trig, you know my name's not Dave, and he goes, "Who's Dave then? Why don't I start calling you Dave?" 2 minutes he's had to call you Dave. Sorry, mate.
It's quite incredible. There's such an array of cast members, which, again, they fit into the storyline so beautifully. Even someone as simple as Mike the barman, they have such a pivotal role. Again, these shows that are going to be in the S tier, every single character matters, and they all fit the plots in perfectly. And I'm not going to profess to be Only Fools and Horses' biggest fan. In fact, you said about your top 5 sitcoms. I don't even think it features in my top 10, for crying out loud. But I know, like you said about Steptoe and Son, I'm fully aware of his legacy, even to this day in pop culture. You can go into Lidl, you can go into any one of these Arabic shops on Oxford Street, which are all money laundering, and there'll be Del Boy pots and pans and T-shirts that you can buy. Still to this day, Gary, you can still buy Only Fools and Horses memorabilia. And what does that tell you about its legacy? It's the fact that still to this day, within reason, people know what that represents.
I was playing Forza 5, which is a racing game, and in that you can get like the little three-wheeler van, and that only came out a couple of years ago. Right, let's move on to the next one, Steve. So this is Allo Allo, which again came out in the sort of mid-80s. I really like this, Steve. This is a big part of my childhood. French cafe in the Second World War, where they're basically rebelling against the Nazis. It ran from the year I was born, I've got in my notes this, in 1982, for at least 10 years, maybe longer. My dad loved this, so actually maybe I didn't rebel against my dad that much, because I loved this as well. Had some beautiful women in it, some great characters like the policeman, who'd always mispronounce his worms. The gay Nazi guy and his tank I used to love. Great concept. The Madonna with the big boobies. I know you're not liking it, Steve, but I'm gonna give this one. I love this one. This is actually the sort of, this is slapstick. I'm going to completely contradict myself, but I really like this. I love this. I wouldn't go for S tier because it's not like awe-defining or anything, but I'd probably go to A tier for this. Steve-O,
when did you last actually watch this properly?
It was repeated during the day on BBC.
Still is.
Is it still? Well, no, I'm not saying I'm going out away, but I've got a lot of very fond memories. I must have watched all of this pretty much when I was only born when it came out, but from when I remember 1987, I remember watching all of it and loving it. Absolutely loving it.
This is my point. There's some sitcoms on here which I would say I watched it when I was 8 years old with my parents, and then since then, 25 years later, I've seen it on UK Gold or whatever, and I've gone, what on earth is this garbage?
The Madonna with the big boobies, stuff like that doesn't change in hilarity as you get
older.
No.
But I watched Allo Allo about a couple of months ago. It was on, and I'm watching it. I'm just thinking again. It just gives me a. Like you get what the humor is. It's so the humor is so simple. A fucking chimpanzee will understand it, but it just does nothing for me because it's like you said. It's just a character will walk in and go like, "Oh, I just pissed by the police station," and it's like, and this the laughter track or whatever. It may even be in a live audience for all I know, and it's just. It's a bit like Dad's Army. I get it.
Oh, I couldn't stand Dad's Army. We could have had that in here, but
it's just to this day, I'm just like, I get it, but I'm just because a lot of it again is humor for its time. And when you've got a show like Fawlty Towers, which to this day you could show anybody and they'd enjoy it for what it is.
Except me.
Allo Allo, most people would look at it with a blank face and go, nah, not for me, not for me. And to put it into an A tier.
A tier, it's in my A tier, even if it's not yours.
God, what influence or anything has this had on
Doesn't necessarily
within reason anything moving forward?
But A tier isn't that. S tier is it has to have influenced, you know, or it has to be incredible. A tier is just you love it. But in this case, I love it.
You love it. I think it's
Where would you go?
D. Again, like Steptoe and Son. For me, like, don't get me wrong, I get its relevance of its time. I get it. But I would not be putting it in A or B. It would have to be a C.
You overrid me with Steptoe and Son, so I'm going to override you with this one. We're going to go with B.
I'll be fascinated by the people in the... I mean, who the hell even put forward Allo Allo?
That one was in the suggestions. All right, so we're sticking in the 80s. Go back and have a quick look at my notes for this one.
I can't believe Allo Allo was around the time of Fawlty Towers.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it was the year that I was born.
So in fact, Dad's Army would have been in the late 60s, I'm guessing, mid to late 60s.
Probably.
At a complete random guess, but you've muted yourself, Gary.
Blackadder. I mean, you can't really describe this. It's the same evil. It's not really evil. Machiavellian character is in 4 different series. Well, actually, in the first series, is actually a bumbling idiot. Is more of a Machiavellian character in the later 3. And he exists in 3 different time periods with funny characters around him. I didn't watch this till I was older. I always remember it was always like the clever Matt Boys comedy. Oh, you've got to watch Blackadder. But I did watch it. I've watched it all the way through. I really like the second and third series. First series is a complete mess. The 4th series we're in the war, I think is overrated. But so yeah, I would say second and third series would be A, maybe even S tier, because it is quite. But the first series would be a D, and the 4th series would be like a C. So I'd probably go with like an A or something here. Steve, you a big fan of Blackadder?
I've never seen it. I've seen
seen Blackadder.
I've seen bits and pieces, but the only thing I take away from that show is the fact that Tony Robinson became one of the greatest TV presenters on the planet with Time Team. That's all I know about this show. It has nothing to do with Blackadder. In fact,
Aldrich, brilliant.
Yeah, I could not believe that Tony Robinson, the amazing presenter of Time Team, was actually a comedy performer before that show.
And he said Red Dwarf as well, isn't he? We're going to talk about. No, is he?
Tony Robinson.
Oh no, he's not. I'm thinking. No, yeah, sorry.
What are you talking about? And I just find the comedy just so. It's not. In the words of, we'll get to it in a minute, from Phoenix Nights, you're not funny. It's just not funny. I don't understand what the humour is. If you can explain to me what the humour is, please do. But apart from, what's his face, Rowan Atkinson.
Brilliant.
Just belittling Goldrick.
Brilliant. I've got a cunning plan.
Yeah, and then Hugh Laurie bumbling along, and I think it was Stephen Fry in it as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I get the fact that in reality, these some of the greatest geniuses when it comes to comedy and very, very educationally sound individuals. But this show, the fact that I've never really seen it, I can't really critique it. But anytime I have, I've just bored out of my mind, Gary. I remember actually being shown at school the end episode where they go over the trenches and so on and so forth.
That's what everyone says is so moving. I cried, Gary.
Again, no. I can't comment on that. So for me, I appreciate the fact that it's in some form of, at the time, pop culture. It was quite a dividing show. I think my dad may have watched it. but certainly not in my real presence. And again, out of the respect to the show, and I know it's going to have a lot of diehard fans, I'd probably put it in B, but that's only begrudgingly. I'd probably put it in C, to be completely frank.
Let's go B. I would go A, but the first series was crap. It was literal bollocks. He's not even the same character. I thought the fourth series was overrated, and it's also come into my mind just while we're talking about this. They did a special, a Millennium special, which was absolutely horrible as well. So let's go B. Although for me it would be an A. Okay, so this is one where I know. So this is one of my top 5 of all time. Red Dwarf, which again came out sort of in the mid 80s, which I was surprised about. So this is a science fiction, sort of half science fiction.
This came out in the mid 80s.
Yeah, I think it was like 1987, something like that. So yeah, there was a long gaps between series. So sort of a sci-fi show, 2 guys, Lister and Rimmer, stuck on a ship together, sailing around the world. Again, 2 guys stuck in situation sort of theme, Steve-O, you get what I mean? Later joined a cat as well, who's not really a cat, and later an android, and they tour the universe. And I've got this in a lot of my descriptions, Steve-O, and hilarity assumes. So I love this. Hilarious. Great standout, laugh out loud moments. I've even been watching clips from it this week, like with the talking toaster. Brilliant sci-fi stories. Massively more successful than it should have been. The only downside was it basically, after season 6, it went completely downhill. I don't think it ever recovered. I think there's been 3 or 4 series since. I think there's even one out on one of the cable channels now. But those first 6 series were up there with the best 6 series of British sitcom in history, in my opinion. So this is a nailed S tier for me. Steve-O, I know you said to me before, I don't think you're a fan of this one.
It's not that I'm not a fan. It's here we go. Say the line, Bart. I've just never watched it. It's just never appealed to me. And again, if we're referencing it, it's the fact that Craig Charles was in this. I only know Craig Charles from Robot Wars, where again, I think comedy series or comedy characters make the best TV presenters, because he was phenomenal in Robot Wars. Like, he was absolutely stunning. He's very good in Coronation Street when he was in it as well.
Before he had his crack habit.
yeah. You also had the guy the black guy in it. He was, the only reason why I know of him is because he was in The Bill, and also he was in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels for a brief 2-second appearance.
I can't remember his name.
And it's a I love it when people say that. It's, oh yeah, this show is like my favourite ever. Don't know his name though, but yeah, it's a show which has completely passed me by. Completely gone over my head. And my mate Dan.
Can I tell you a random story about Craig Charles?
Go for it.
I went to, do you remember Tomorrow's World?
Yeah.
I went to the exhibition, Tomorrow's World exhibition, when I was 17, 18. So this would have been in the late 90s, I guess. And in it, they were filming Robot Wars, so an episode a day. And we went to see it. I went for a piss, and who was there? At the urinal, but Craig Charles. He turned around. I said, "You're Craig Charles, aren't you? I'm such a fan." He completely blanked me and walked straight past.
Oh,
and
really?
I've never been able to look at him the same way again. But it hasn't put me off Red Dwarf.
Experience with the true Geordie.
Sorry, man. I cut you off. Sorry, man.
Yeah, it's a show which Dan, I know, has the same opinions as you. He thinks is absolute piece of genius and thinks is absolutely hilarious. He's been to some Red Dwarf conventions, and again, there's nothing I can add other than I don't understand why you would put it in S. It's just something that's passed me by.
Well, have you watched it enough? If you haven't watched it enough to give an honest
completely answers no, I haven't.
Okay, well then because this 4 Phoenix Nights and a couple other ones later on, I'm just going to hand over to you. So I'm going to put this in S tier. Do you know what I mean? Unless you've got like a strong opinion, then we'll just go with whoever's seen it the most. Yeah, I love this. Although if you were to rate it, Steve, where would you have it? C, D?
Probably a C, yeah.
C. Okay.
Probably down at C, yeah.
All right, so we're getting on to some more obscure ones
When
now.
do we get to the 2000s?
So we're going 90s here. I think we're into the 1990s now. This is very early 90s. Drop the Dead Donkey, which is about journalists in the 1990s. It was quite clever, and it used to actually bring in the headlines that were out that day on like the Sun or whatever, and bring it into the episode, even though most of the episode was filmed, obviously not on the day it came out. Yeah, it was quite anarchic. I mean, I did watch it when I was a kid. I didn't understand most of the jokes when I was a kid, because I was a kid. It was very witty. It was on point. I really used to fancy the PA. The boss character was very good. But so I liked it, but I didn't get the jokes when I was a kid, even though I think watching them back, because I do get some of the references now. A lot of them were very funny, but at the same time, you can't really watch it back because, I mean, you're not going to get the references now. So for me, this is, at the time, it probably would have been an A or B, but from a watching back perspective, it's probably a C. Steve, any thoughts on this one?
Again, it's a show in which I'd go to school and I'd hear various classmates say, "Did you watch Drop the Dead Donkey?" And
Really?
I'd be like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I've never, ever seen anything to do with this show whatsoever. It's funny because you were mentioning about reference points, and I was saying to you on a voice message about how Bo Selector, for instance, it just, unless you knew who the celebrities are, if you were to show Bo Selector to somebody to today, they're looking at it going, what's with all the mask wearing and who are they taking the mick out of, etc., etc. But people like us, we understand who the likes of Craig David, Mick Hucknall, blah 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 is. And Drop the Dead Donkey, based on what you're all saying, seems that it was more of its time, quite literally in that sense.
It was written to be, yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with the Bills. No comment.
No comment. I'm going to stick it in. As I say, back in the day, it would have been an A. I'm going to go B. Because
I think a lot of this it should be prefaced with, if you were to watch it, literally, if we were to turn on the TV, could you sit through an episode and genuinely
do it from today,
enjoy it for what it is? And that's the thing. Like, could I watch an episode of Drop the Dead Donkey and be like, oh yeah? Because when you shared with me, for instance, the show Rock Profiles, I genuinely did chuckle to myself with Matt Lucas's ridiculous, over the top versions of whomever he's performing as.
It's a show for people watching where the two lads at Little Britain used to basically do extreme caricatures of just
I'm assuming this was before Little Britain as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I think it was what it made them, basically, of rock and roll music people. Yeah,
and this is the thing. Whereas sitcoms specifically, I do find like we're about to do, what was it, Keeping Up Appearances next. I mean, good. I mean, again, who the hell even wrote this down? In that they need to get help, basically.
Well, we're obviously going to disagree with this one. Keeping Up Appearances. This woman really reminded me of my nan, who passed away earlier in the year. Not that my nan wasn't prim and proper or anything. Well, no, she was. She had no egotism about her, but she was very prim and proper. Anyway, I'll read my notes to this one. So, a very egotistical old lady who insists she must be called Bouquet, the Bouquet residence, the lady of the house speaking, even though her name's spelled Bucket, and is surrounded by loads of people, and hilarity assumes. I fucking love this, Steve-O. It cracks me up every time I watch it. I would go back and watch it. If I do go back and watch it, it cracks me up. I love it. I love the pianist guy.
I think it's on ITV3 at the moment.
I love it when the pianist guy hides away from her. I do think it's a bit over the top that basically everyone in the whole show has their entire life basically dictated by this insane woman. I can't put it in S tier because it's not revolutionary or anything. But this is a strong A tier for me, Steve-O, a very strong A tier. Your opinions, mate?
The only thing I can give any credit to is just the face. I'm a facial expressions fan. I think that people's facial expressions of just looking at absolute horror as to what's unfolding in front of them is some of the funniest comedy you can get. And i.e. in the Training Day episode of The Office with Rowan, just looking at like what the is going on here with this bloke that's just gone home to get a guitar, and it's her husband, isn't it, the one with the moustache, and some of his facial expressions of just absolute horror from something that she's doing make me chuckle. Very similar to Last of the Summer Wine, some of the original kind of like the mid-90s, early to mid-90s episodes I genuinely have watched due to whatever circumstances, but while I was with my mum, it was just something to watch for 5 minutes while she was making the tea. And do you know what? I genuinely actually laughed aloud, because you need
there was some good bits
straight man.
There was some good bits.
You need to have that person that's just so ridiculous to then counter it by look at them in this way of like complete utter confusion of just like, are you seeing this, what we're all seeing? Like, it's just like Tim in The Office. It's just, what the hell is going on here? And certainly I give it credit for that. Other than that, if I've ever put it on TV, again, it's one of those where I just don't get it. I don't understand why this was so popular. Very similar to, again, as I was channel hopping down at my mum's and there was the $6 Million Man on, You and Eden or whatever. And do you know what? I watched it for what it was, and I appreciated why people watched it. It's the same as, what's it called, that police show that he takes the mick out of with Malcolm in The Office. The bald-headed guy, I've completely forgotten the name now, as a copper, but anyway, Kojak. And basically that I really genuinely appreciate for what it was, and it still to this day is very enjoyable. But these shows like comedies, I'm literally sitting down going, right, essentially make me laugh, and I get nothing from it. I'm afraid, Gary, so you're just going to have to rate it.
Okay.
I would put it in D, personally.
All right. Cool one.
Your life isn't depending on... You're not... It's like Jason with his school predictions.
We'll go... If it's between... I mean, because it should go B or C then, shouldn't it? But... If I've taken preference on the last one, you take preference on this one, and we'll put it in C. I mean, the difference between A and D is somewhere between B and C, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Comment below.
But for me, an A. All right. So next, 1 Foot in the Grave. A man gets older and moans a lot is what I've got written in my list. I watched this a lot when I was a kid. I found it depressing and boring. I'm not a fan. I do not like this. Although I did discuss it with my brother earlier on, and he actually quite liked it because I knew I was going to do this. But I wouldn't put it in D because I'm even less of a fan of the next one coming up. But I used to find this boring and very mean-spirited and not funny at all. Steve?
So when I was younger, again in the early 90s, when I was 10 years old, whatever, and the parents would watch it. It was like that late night sitcom on at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I'm not going to lie, I really wanted to watch it. Excuse me. I really want to watch it because of Victor Meldrew and the "I don't believe it" catchphrase. Let's get real here. It's up there with some of the biggest catchphrases, along with "Am I bothered?"
Oh no!
And what do you mean? No, of course it bloody is. Even to this day.
Yeah, I get it, but it shouldn't be.
You're right. Anyway, that's the whole point of the catchphrase, isn't it? It's a bit like we come to a bit later with Phoenix Nights, garlic bread, But other than that, fast forward 25 years and it being repeated on, whatever channel it is, UB53 channel on Freeview, and I turn it on and all I see is just this old woman who's just talking about the fact that she's been shopping. All of a sudden the door swing opens and Victor Meldrew walks in and just basically says, words to the effect of, "I just can't believe that I've just been to the shops and I asked the lady to pack the bags and she didn't do it for me. I don't believe it." And I'm just there like, it's not funny to today. No. And in fact, based on what you're saying, you didn't find it funny at the time. I'm just only a few years younger than you, and even me, I honestly am probably thinking of false memories, but rubbish. I'd probably put it in C category because of its impact on
We've agreed on
pop
one.
culture at the time.
We've agreed on one. We've agreed on one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I have a feeling you might not have even seen this, Steve-O. Tell me if I'm wrong. As time goes by, this was in the list.
Never heard of it.
It was about an old couple who have a boring middle-class life with posh kids. I was forced to...
right.
I was forced to... It had that song. As time goes by... I can't even stand the theme song. I hated this. This is my first D tier. I like Judi Dench as an actress. That's the only good thing I can say of it. But I don't know if I would have liked her in this or not. I'm guessing you don't have any opinions on this, Steve.
Again, I was channel hopping. I came across this show and I saw the bloke from Fawlty Towers that says, "Oh, I fancy some sausages." And that's it. That's all I can tell you about. He's the doctor in Fawlty Towers. He probably performed a better role in that, I'm guessing, than he did the whole of this particular sitcom. Put it in D. Let's move on. All
right, the British Empire. So this is... I think this may have been quite inspired by Fawlty Towers, based on what you were saying. So, a kind of narcissistic, lunatic guy, Chris Barry, who I love, also in Red Dwarf, of course, takes over a leisure centre, surrounded by some crazy characters, and hilarity assumes. I said I was going to say that a lot, didn't I, Steve-O? I quite like this. I actually did watch a couple of series back of this a few months ago. Chris Barry's brilliant. Some brilliant, insane situations. However, it does rely just really on him and the world responding to him. Similar to a Hyacinth Bouquet, keeping up appearances, but not in a good way. Does make me chuckle, but it became very repetitive. I think there was 6 series, maybe 7. And after about the first couple, just repeating the same thing around him, got a bit boring for me. So this is pretty much my definition of a D. It made me laugh, but it's about it, really. Do you remember this one, Steve-O? Did you watch it a lot?
Again, it's a sitcom in which I remember maybe a couple of my friends saying that I should get involved with. Never seen it in my life. I know that my favourite office podcast, Wern and Blog, they say that the British Empire is really, really funny, although they do preface it by saying it's a bit dated now. It's one of those where maybe tonight I go on YouTube and type in, British Empire and see what I think. But again, I can't comment on it. Whatever you say, you say.
We'll go with B. Yeah, it's very... Everyone's in shell suits. So you can tell it's very dated to the 90s. Just show our tier list so far for anyone watching. Fast forwarding through, Steve-O, just to see where we're rating them. All right, we can do this one very quickly. So this is 2.4 Children, which was in the list. I added it in thinking that I remembered it, and then when making my notes last night, realised I remembered nothing from it at all, although apart from the fact as a 7-8-year-old boy, I fancied the teenage daughter in it, as the older lady. I think she was in... what was the school show called? Grange Hill as well.
Grange Hill.
So I'm just tempted to put this in B because I literally don't remember. I do remember my parents enjoyed it and it used to be on a lot, but I literally can't remember it. You said you saw this on a cable type show recently, Steve.
Yeah, it was on again one of these obscure channels on Freeview, and all I remember is the fact that it was really popular at the time. And I'm just looking at it on my screen here, and the younger lad went on to I think he went on to Hollyoaks or something. I really can't remember now. I'm going to click on his name in a minute, but I watched it. John Pickard, his name is. I watched it, and Hollyoaks, yeah. And to be completely frank, I'm just sat there and I'm going, I get the humour they're trying to get across, but once again, it does literally nothing for me. There's nothing funny where I thought, oh, that's a really good gag, that. Once again, at the time, I do remember at the time, it was absolutely ginormous.
It was, yeah, it was.
I do remember a lot of my schoolmates basically needing to get home to watch it. But once again, I just have no real direct opinion of any memories whatsoever. So it's really down to what you feel. But to be completely frank, I'd probably be putting it in D again.
Well, I don't think we can put it in D because we don't really remember it. So I'll put it in C. Put it in C, yeah. Okay. The next one. So, Steve, I'm going to go on a bit of a... So, this one is Rick Mel and Adrian Edmondson, two down-and-out, perverted loonies, basically, who spend their time trying to get off with women and beating the shit out of each other. So, me and Steve have talked about this one before. I know he's not a big fan. This holds a massive place in my heart, Steve-O, because it was probably my first ever comedy that I really loved. I had all the scripts and stuff. Someone bought me when I was like 10. I knew every single word of this. It was my first ever real favourite comedy when I was 11. And I am going to preface this with when I was 11, because there's a lot of toilet humour. There's a lot of mindless violence. And to be honest, when I watch it back, it's not as amazing as I remember. So I would still have to give it probably 8. It's probably not as good as the young ones, which we haven't got in here. Probably should have done. But I'd probably put it in A. I mean, for me, probably S tier, but given its place in my childhood. But probably more of an A tier, realistically. You're not a fan, are you, Stephen?
No, again, some of these things where I may not be a fan of, I appreciate why people like yourself enjoy it for what it is. There's two, one of them isn't even a memory, and the other one is a memory. The memory one was just my closest friend, Ben, at the time. We would have been, do you know what? I couldn't even tell you. We're at primary school, and we were doing a sleepover, and they would play Bottom Live over and over. And I
yeah, my mates used to do that.
I hated it, Gary. It actually angered me.
I didn't like the Bottom Live because they used to go off script all the time and think they were funny, going off script was funny, and then they would turn a half an hour show into an hour, 2 hours, and then just taking the piss out of each other. Okay. Which the crowd used to fucking love, but I couldn't stand it. I just want them to get on with the episode. But anyway.
Maybe that's why I didn't like it, because I just couldn't get my head around what the hell was going on. I didn't like it at all. And then the other one is about an XFM episode where Carl Pilkington says how he took a girl that he was trying to impress to a Bottom Live, and basically it turned out that she had a problem with her marrow. Any XFM fans will understand that joke. And basically Ricky Gervais is like, you took her to Bottom Live, and when you went to see Rick Mail and whoever the other guy is just jumping around in their underpants. I think that just sums up everything for me. Again, I'm not a fan of Rick Mail. I just don't find the humour funny. It just does nothing for me. The only performance I appreciate of Rick Mail was in The Bill. That's as far as
Rick Mail was in The Bill?
Yes, in 2-3 episodes. It was like a continuous story.
Was that before he made it big? Or actually, he'd been around before The Bill, wouldn't he? He would have made it big.
This would have been in the very early 90s, maybe the late 80s.
Yeah, he was big. He was big by the mid 80s, weren't he? Sort of
even one of the Pink Floyd guitarists has been in The Bill, was in a prominent story, and that was when he was really famous. So yeah, The Bill's had a lot of very famous people in it, whether it was before they were famous or during their fame. But yeah, Rick Mail is within reason one of them. So I mean, I would probably put it in C personally, but again, I'm not really the person to be.
All right, let's go B. I know it's got big fans, but I also know there's a lot of people who dislike it. Okay. Right, I've got in my notes this one, Steve-O. This was not really a sitcom written for two guys who were teenagers in the 90s. This was really written for females and gay men. I know gay men absolutely love Absolutely Fabulous.
And what is it, Gary? You haven't actually
Absolutely Fabulous. So Jennifer Saunders and what's her name? Joanna Lumley are socialites who are also arseholes and go around being nasty to people, and people react around them and stuff. I think they have something to do with fashion in it. So my mum used to love this, so I did see most of it when I was a kid. I didn't like it. It didn't make me laugh. I don't think I can put it in D, because I don't think this is made for us, Steve-O. This is female. I don't want to be sexist, but this kind of is female humor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'd probably go C, just because I would probably go D, but I would go for a C because I don't find this funny, but I don't think I'm meant to find this funny, if that makes sense.
It has literally had zero impact on my life whatsoever, other than the fact that I just got annoyed when I think it was Joanna Lumley was recently doing some absolutely fabulous style YouTube or adverts, and they kept popping up on YouTube, and I was just getting sick to death of them. That's as far as my knowledge goes of the show.
All right, we'll go with my rating for this one. We'll put it in C. Although, viewers, if you think it to go higher, I would respect that. Okay, the next one. Oh, so this is one of my favourites, Steve-O. This is one of my favourites. Alan Partridge. Steve Coogan plays a right-wing conservative car nut in a series that's gone on for 30 years, Steve-O. 30 years. In various guises. The original was a talk show. It then went on to him living in a travel lodge, which was by far the best series. And then it's gone on in one form or another to, there's a radio show. The last time I saw it, it was the One Show. So I'm a massive Alan Partridge mark, Steve-O. I love the character. Well, I hate the character, but I also love him. I've even listened to all the audio books when I've been wandering around, which is very not like me. I didn't actually really like the original series, which was like a talk show. I don't know if you remember that. It was really early 90s. And I didn't really like the last thing he did, which was sort of supposed to be like a version of the One Show. But the other stuff he did, the radio show and the second series, everything else I absolutely love. So this is S tier all the way for me.
Yeah, this is something I will agree with, other than the fact that I cannot stand Alan Partridge. I agree with everything you said. I just can't stand it. I just literally don't get it. My friends, two of my closest friends, Mr. Reed and Morell, they are two of Alan Partridge's, Steve Coogan's biggest fans. And this show, I literally don't get. I've tried my hardest to get it, but I'm just like, there was something I watched on YouTube was Alan Partridge is doing work experience in Tesco, and I watched it and I just went, it's for me, it's too literal to the point of where I can't, without wanting to do a David Brent, but I just can't decipher between Steve Coogan and Alan Partridge.
The funny thing is, Steve Coogan is the complete opposite. He's an incredibly left-wing, sues the newspaper. He sued the Daily Mail and the Sun and all that.
Yeah.
Whereas over the whole, the phone hacking thing. Whereas in the show, he's like the biggest Daily Mail fan ever. So it's sort of. But I get what you mean. The thing is, I can, as much as I love this, I can understand people not liking it because
I wish. When Morell tells me about and what you've just mentioned regarding the podcast and the way Steve Coogan has taken the direction of Alan Partridge, I wish Ricky Gervais and Merchant, but Gervais especially, had just taken some inspiration instead of being this egotistical arsehole and actually done what Steve Coogan did with Alan Partridge, because there was so much you could do with the David Brent character, very similar to Partridge.
Oh, we talked about
Ricky Gervais.
We talked about it last weekend in a shitty film.
Gervais ruined Brent.
Yeah.
And whereas Partridge, my friend actually says that he's actually gone on to become even a more comical genius. And he thinks that the podcasts and recent stuff that he's doing is so clever, and it just angers me that there was so much potential that Gervais could have done with Brent, but he's just ruined it. Whereas with...
I'll tell you, the last thing he did, which was an O2 tour, was the worst thing he's ever done. And it's interesting because he co-wrote with a guy called Armando Iannucci. You may have heard the name. He's written quite a few comedy shows in his time, and that guy stopped writing with him. And basically, I think him doing Steve Coogan by himself. Sorry, Stephen Coogan writing Alan Partridge by himself appears to be the equivalent of Ricky Gervais writing David Brent by himself.
That's really interesting. I'm completely unaware of that, but I completely, fully understand. Like, you think about the amount of, say, Facebook groups or X accounts which are dedicated to Alan Partridge, and the quotes that come out from the show, very similar to The Office and Peep Show. It's in our is it vernaculum?
Yeah,
it's part of our language. Yeah, part of our vernacular, and especially in the world of X or any form of social media, but specifically Facebook and X, where these shows are memed to the point of where it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, it doesn't matter what the situation is, and it doesn't matter what era of Alan Partridge, you can clip something, put it to whatever the subject matter is, and people just get it. They may not even know who Alan Partridge is, but they get it. And I think that just shows the testament to the quality of the character is. But for me, I legitimately just do not understand the humor. But I even tried to watch the film, and I just could not understand what the hell was going on.
The film wasn't.
It's a shame, really, because
the film wasn't great. I think it was.
Yeah, it's a shame because I really liked, or I liked the direction of what the tour. Is it the tour that Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon did together?
Oh yeah, I've never seen that. But I know the one you mean.
It's worth going out. I think it's on BBC iPlayer. It's really worth going out your way to watching. However, me saying that, I got to about episode 4, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. It's just getting a bit, for me, it just got a bit too stupid. But I do think that Steve Coogan is up there with one of the greatest comedy geniuses, along with the people that we're going to get to later on. But yeah, I completely agree with you. S.
Okay, awesome. I guess
look at that tier of S's. I mean,
we haven't got a single in A.
If you were to take, well, that's the thing. I would put Red Dwarf in A personally. I think that when you look at
it's not moving.
That Fawlty Towers, Only Fools and Horses, and Partridge have had on everything. Red Dwarf definitely has not had that impact.
Oh, mate, it has. It has.
Has it though?
Yeah, they even tried to make a bloody American version. They're still trying to get funding for a film now. It was so big in Japan. It was like bigger than
Red Dwarf, big in Japan.
Yeah. It was like bigger than Japan than it was ever over here. They've been trying to fund the movie. Japanese film companies have been trying
with all the original cast.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to happen now. They're too old. But anyway, mate, let's move on to the next one. I'm happy to get that in there. Okay, I mentioned this to you earlier, didn't I, in one of our voice messages? Men behaving badly. So, did you know Harry Enfield was in the first series of this?
No,
he was in the first series, but I never saw that series. But then, what's his name? Neil Morrissey took over. It's basically two lads share a flat, get pissed, and try and get off with Leslie Ash before she fucked up her face with a lip job. And
yeah, I'm looking at a picture here.
Well, the woman sort of looked down on him for doing so. So my dad used to love this. Never really liked it. I mean, there are some funny moments. There's one moment, I wrote this in the notes last night, where there's a barman character, and he says something to one of the blokes about like football, and they don't know anything about football. It's like, I think Sheringham, should do this, and then he goes, "What do you think?" And he says, "Well, I think Sheringham should go into the rat hole, do this, you know what I mean? Just some completely weird thing that made no sense. Barnby should act like a fox more," and then the barman just goes, "Yeah, all right then." It was just like trying to confuse someone. The barman confuses him with football language he doesn't know about, and then he just comes back and like talks a load of nonsense to the barman. That line made me laugh out loud, but I don't think it's ever made me laugh apart from that. I don't know. I've got C down here, but I could probably go as far down as D. But I don't know. Maybe this is very much of the time.
That is the line. But what I will say is just think about where Martin Clunes, Neil Morrissey are today. They are legitimately two British icons within the acting world.
I know Martin Clunes is.
Neil Morrissey is legitimately a very, very, very good serious actor. In Line of Duty, he is phenomenal in that.
Lovely.
You know, he made absolute millions regarding Bob the Builder. We can all laugh about
Bob the Builder, yeah.
He made millions on that. He's now quite a respectable, known actor.
Clunes did that.
He's not treated as a joke anymore. And then Martin Clunes, of course,
did that Doctor
he's
thing,
gone on to. Yeah, but he's still doing it. Doc Martin is still going to this day. I believe so. Yeah. So them two alone have gone on to such huge success. And yeah, it was a show of its time. I think that this is a show in which should definitely be in that category of, I would probably say B, because even for me, it was one of those shows where your friends at school would be saying, you've got to watch Men Behave Man, you've got to watch it, it's so funny. I just never watched because my parents were so strict that I couldn't watch anything, to be honest with you. I couldn't even watch the Teletubbies for crying out loud. But it definitely isn't. It's not in there with the likes of Keeping Up Appearances for crying out loud or the other nonsense in there.
It's not as good as Keeping Up Appearances.
I can't comment. Could I? I mean, if I put on an episode today and watch it, could I probably laugh? Yeah, I think a B is about right.
Okay, let's go. We'll go with B.
In fact, when I look at it in a tier list now, I'd probably be putting the Blackadder in the A list for the fact of its legacy, and it's the same with Allo Allo. Now, when you put the likes of Men Behaving Badly in B, and British Empire and Bottom, and even Bottom, I would probably put in an A. To be completely frank, now looking at it, because
you're agreeing with me, so
yeah, because the only thing I don't agree with is Red Dwarf. I'm still in the S tier, but whatever.
All right. Well, you've given way to me a bit, so we'll.
Because those three above are national treasures in A. They're national treasures. You could, again, the test of time is if you were to show a 20-year-old a sketch from either of these three shows, and I reckon Fawlty Towers, Only Fools and Horses, if you were to show a generic clip of something stupid and slapstick, they probably could laugh. Alan Partridge, it's more for the mature audiences and people that appreciate the character and the things that he's impacted on. But I think this tier list now is looking more realistic and more respectable, actually, now looking at it now.
Except Hyacinth Bouquet is still in B. C, sorry. All right, let's do one more, Steve-O, and then I may do my normal thing, but we can pause the video because we're not on a live stream, are we? Don't worry if you don't get my reference there. Vicar of Dibley. So Dawn Frank is a priest surrounded by nutcases, basically. So I thought, writing my notes last night, I was going to give this a low rating. Wasn't a fan as a kid, but this is actually one of those ones that when I've watched it back, it's grown on me more. You know, they usually show a couple of episodes at Christmases. I love the guy, you know, the yes. No, I love him. Trigger's character, I don't know the actor's name. You know, the mad farmer guy, he's good. I even like that Alice girl, you know, the fit girl who I couldn't stand as a kid. Not that this brings it up to like amazing standard for me, but it probably B for me.
B,
yeah. It's grown on me. It's grown on me. It would have been D.
Roger Lloyd Pack is the actor's name for Trigger, but
okay.
Again, another show which just completely escaped me. I know my mum watched it. I think it was on a Sunday, like at 6:30, 7 o'clock.
It's more of a.
Like that.
I think it's more of another one that's more aimed at a female audience, but not to the same extent. It's absolutely fabulous.
Again, for me, I would agree with you though. C.
C.
And that's me being polite.
We can put it in C. My younger self would have given it D. So. Okay.
I still would.
Sorry for the brief pause in the recording there, viewers. Technical issues, as fans of my second channel will know, quite often happens in my recordings. So, next we are on to Game On. So this may be, I am imagining, the least known. Maybe. Did you see this one, Steve-O? Say yes or no for now. No. It may be the least known. It only ran for 3 years, but I love this. I absolutely love this. It's about a narcissistic, agoraphobic, which means he didn't go out of his house. He shares a flat with a wimp and a hot, sexually promiscuous young lady, Samantha Janice, and hilarity assumes. So this holds a special place in my heart. I've watched it back a million times. It's one of those, Steve-O, that I almost know. You know, when you watch the episode back, you almost know it word for word. It is very much of its time. Matthew, the agoraphobic character, is one of my favourite characters of all time. He's completely insane. I also had an agoraphobic mate when I was a kid, when I watched this, who he reminded me very much of. Shame it only ran for 3 seasons. The last season wasn't quite as good as the first 2. But for me, this is S tier. It probably isn't for anyone else in the world, but for me, it's S tier. I'm not expecting we're going to put it in S tier. I'm not going to put it in S tier, even if you let me have complete reign over this. But it's definitely A tier because it used to make me laugh out loud. Have you ever seen this, Steve?
The only thing I can tell you about this is I'm immediately drawn to one of the characters who was Matthew, and Neil Stuke is his name, and he was in a very, very, very interesting kidnap story or abduction story in The Bill, and it was really, really good. He performed genuinely a phenomenal performance. Really enjoyed his character in The Bill. I've know the name Game On. That's about as far as it goes.
Well,
and based on what you're saying, it's probably an A.
Yeah. Well, actually, Neil Stuke only came in the second series. His character in the first series was played by Ben Chaplin, who was Charlie Chaplin's great-great-grandson or something, which is a bit weird.
All right, okay.
All right, we'll stick this in A. I highly recommend. I doubt a lot of people. I think all of these are actually. You can tell that it's not that successful because now I used to be able to find everything on YouTube. Like you could find everything, and now because of streaming services, it's all been taken off. This is all still on YouTube, which shows how much people mustn't care about it because it would be on a streaming service otherwise. But I highly recommend checking this out. Okay, another favourite of mine. This may be my favourite sitcom ever, alongside Seinfeld. So technically,
Nick.
Sorry?
Me and Nick of Juice will not be your friend.
You're not going to be happy with me. So yes, this is Irish in some senses. I'm Irish. Perhaps that has some. I know I don't sound it. Effect on me, but it was made by a British producer, and it was originally aired on Channel 4. So technically, it is British. 3 insane priests are located on an insane island with an insane housekeeper, and hilarity literally here assumes. I can't describe in words how much I love Father Ted. I watched it all when it originally came out. Again, it's one that I know literally every line for line, every single word from. It's surreal. It's not really a sitcom, there's no real running path. It's just absolutely insane. This is probably my favourite sitcom of all time. I can still watch this back. I do watch this back, and I will laugh out loud, even though I know what's coming. I just love it, Steve-O. I love it. This has to be S tier for me, mate. This has to be S tier. Your thoughts?
Wow. S tier.
S tier, my friend.
It's again another show which friends of mine would, when I went to sleepovers, would have it on, and it did nothing for me. Now I'm looking through the cast, and I completely forgot Graham Norton's in it, and I believe there were characters which I enjoyed in the show from off the top. He was one of, he genuinely was one of them, and I like the Dermot Morgan, the main character. He's very good in it as well.
Who died of a heart attack shortly, literally a few days after they finished making the last ever episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they would have continued it otherwise. Also, do you know who appeared in here? Victor Meldrew. There's a whole episode.
Yes, I know that episode is. I do because doesn't the father Ted go up to him like, I don't believe whatever?
Yeah, and he gets really pissed off.
Yeah, that is funny. I'm not going to take that away. But the thing is, these are isolated. Like for me, these are isolated things, and I always think to myself regarding pop culture and things that are happening at the time, and that what you've just reminded me of was massive. Getting Victor Meldrew in that show, and the fact that even I've watched that bit shows the huge impact it had at the time. But other than that, I remember this Ardal O'Hanlon who played Dougal.
Yeah, he never did much afterwards.
No, he did that My Hero, which was
horrible. Yeah, horrible.
And other than that, again, it's one of those where you cannot put this in S because it's. But
if you were Irish, this is definitely S, mate. They celebrate Mrs. Brown's Boys, which is one of the worst shows I've ever seen. They love if they get any sort of comedy in Ireland, they are well on it.
I think for me, because Extras parodied so many of these shows, like Father Ted.
How did it parody Father Ted?
Because it's just stupid, silly characters. Like it wasn't just parodying specifically Father Ted, but it was parodying comedy which was in the late 90s of just stupid over-the-top characters and innuendo jokes and so on and so forth. And it's why I probably don't like this stuff, because it is comedy I just don't like. And it just goes over my head. I mean, like you said, I think putting an S tier for if you're Irish or whatever, I get it, but probably an A. I do genuinely appreciate the fact that it's got a hardcore following. Me, Gary,
they still repeat it on Channel 4 all the time, like the main channel.
I don't like the character, the really ugly one. I don't know who he is.
Bobby Jack.
But, right, yeah, I really don't like it. Yeah. It does nothing for me, unfortunately.
So here's another one we mentioned in a voicemail, which I quite like. You don't. So I'll read my notes, Steve-O. Police comedy. Not that I'm not like massive on this one, but I quite liked it. Written by Ben Elton. Again, this is one that probably like Game On, a lot of people may not have heard of. It's a police comedy written by Ben Elton. Probably the last semi-decent thing he wrote. It's basically one straight man, straight character, Rowan Atkinson, surrounded by a bunch of nutters. There was nothing unique in it, I've got noted, but I watched it as a kid and laughed. Very non-offensive. I did watch it back about 10 years ago once. I think I made it through about halfway. This is like B for me, Steve.
This for me is fucking awful. Again, it's because of the Werner blog episode, another sitcom with Rowan Atkinson, and I put it on YouTube out of respect to Werner blog because they were like, oh yeah, the thick of it. It's the Thin Blue Line is absolutely hilarious. You need to watch it. So I thought, right, I'll see if it's on YouTube. I put it on. For me, it's the laughter track drives me potty. I mean, I thought Friends was bad or Big Bang Theory. This is beyond parody. And I think there's a quote by Harry Enfield when The Office came out, and he basically just said, yeah, all that stuff before The Office is now dead. This is we're all doomed now because of what Steve and Ricky have created. And
that's not quite
turned out to be, for me.
That's not quite turned out to be true.
In what sense?
Well, there's still a lot of. Well, I don't know. I mean, if we got into comedy, if we got into
stupid, crappy comedy like this, every other word is a joke, and I'm just there like.
But it's been replaced by nothing. I prefer average comedy that I can laugh at a little bit than what's out there today, which I don't like.
Please don't get me wrong. Comedy today is fucking awful.
Exactly. I mean,
I hate
there's
it.
a reason this list ends pretty sharpish at 2010. It's not that we were trying to shut it down. Nobody even suggested anything. There's nothing in the last 15 years that's even...
Yeah, people come out with the line, oh, this country, I legitimately think is just a rip-off of The Office. Because any time I've watched This Country, I legitimately can't get through episode 1 because it looks like they're taking the piss. It's terrorist, just shit. And then you've got people, everybody says, oh, you must love them, people just do nothing. And again, it's unless you're part of that black rap culture, a white man trying to be black and being into hip hop, it doesn't do anything for me. And I know, like you mentioned on the voice message, that comedy is subjective. I get it. But with any comedy, you need to be grabbed by something, and you need to understand what the comedy is. And with the Thin Blue Line, for instance, I get what the comedy is. It's almost like Allo Allo, but trying to put a joke in every second and with a laughter track constantly on continuous loop. And it drove me potty. I saw the show and I thought, there's potential here. I just can't get past the laughter track, unfortunately. And
do you know the strangest thing to me? Do you know? So a lot of it's about, I can't remember. Actually, for some reason, I remember the Asian lady's name's Constable Beeb or something. But there's the gay guy, then went on to Gimme Gimme.
Yeah.
He is the gayest guy ever. But in this, he plays a straight bloke. Which is always completely unbelievable because he's basically in love with the Asian girl. So what would you go with this one, Steve? I don't think we should spend too much time on this one.
I'd probably she again, guess what she's been in, Gary?
Would it be the
Bill? Yeah. And she was absolutely brilliant in it. This, for me, is a C.
Yeah,
and that's me being kind.
I'll go with C. Okay, all right. We are on to possibly my least favourite comedy here, along with Time Goes By. Yeah, there's nothing coming up. Dinner Ladies. Oh, dear. I can't stand Victoria. Victoria Wood is a dinner lady, and boringness ensues. I've got it in my notes. I'm not a fan of Victoria Wood. I mean, I can't pretend that I watched everything she was in. He was in some sort of antiques store thing. I don't know if you've ever seen that, which one of my gay mates tells me he was hilarious, but that was before my time.
And Jonathan Creek, isn't she?
You think?
I think Victoria Wood maybe. I think she's his sidekick, I think.
That was the woman from Men Behaving Badly, wasn't it? He has had a few sidekicks, to be fair. But anyway, that's not a comedy. Any comedy she's been in, I've never found funny. This, I found it's like sickly sweet. Everything has to have a happy ending. And there's it's a bit like Vicar of Dibley, where everything always turns out fine and nice. But the Vicar of Dibley used to make me laugh. This is like this, but it didn't make me laugh at all. This, to me, is the most boring thing. Do you know you were saying earlier about comedies that would come on as a kid and it would make you want to stay up? This would come on about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, and as a kid would make me want to go to bed early. It's that sort of level. This, to me, is a D, Steve.
Well, she was in Jonathan Creek, but not as a sidekick. You are completely right. It was the lady from Men Behaving Badly. I know literally zero about this sitcom. And again, it's one of those where extras takes the mick out of. So it's got to be a D.
Here we go. Okay. So the Royal Family. I mean, I don't even really consider this a comedy. I found it. But I'll get into my feelings in a minute. So Caroline O'Hearn, who I love, sadly passed away very young, didn't she? Is a part of a poor northern family. They hang around in their front room, and a hilarity ensues. And I've got hilarity in quotation marks here. So my family loved this. They used to watch it. I mean, this has probably come out. We're getting into when I was a young adult here, maybe a teenager. They'd play it every week. It must have just been before I went to university. The only things I liked about it was Caroline O'Hearn. It was quite a sexy lady, not being dressed as Mrs. Merton. And I also love the Oasis song at the end because it meant it was finished. Those are my only notes for this, Steve.
Anytime you bring up best British sitcoms, this gets pounded into your skull.
Do you remember when we did a live stream once on your other channel? This was really high, wasn't it? On the
I couldn't tell you.
list.
I just know that everybody waffles on about Royal Family like it's the greatest sitcom ever, and again, it's one of those that's passed me by. It really has passed me by. These people, I know that basically, I think The Office just beat it or The Office lost out to the Royal Family the first. I can't remember now. It was something to do with the Royal. No. Yeah, the Royal Family missed out to The Office. It came second in the BAFTAs.
It was at the time. It was huge, wasn't it? It was huge.
It was absolutely massive. But I just never watched it, and it's a show in which, once again, it will never appeal to me because all I've got the images of is just these horrible, ugly people. That's coming from me. Sat in this disgusting northern home. And I just don't have anything that screams out to me, oh, I want to watch this. Okay. The people just come across just so horrible in the sense of...
I wouldn't say horrible, they're just boring. They didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's one of those where, I don't know if you've heard of, I've completely forgotten its damn name, Three Doors or something like that. It's on BBC iPlayer. It's about just people going to the pub and people are like, oh my God, it's the greatest sitcom ever. And I literally had to turn it off after 10 minutes. I'm thinking, what the hell is this absolute tripe? Royal Family, I've just seen that it's on BBC iPlayer. It's one of those where, a bit like your FPL tier list of if I'm bored, could be one of those, Gary.
Yeah, I'd stick it in. I mean, I think it's too... I don't hate it. I mean, I say, I didn't like it when I was younger. It's not like these two. It's not. I don't hate it. I think C is probably...
I was going to say, I think that as a comedy, I was probably going to think B, actually, personally, but you're in charge, only because of the legacy that Royal Family, to this day, if people are still saying, yeah, the Royal... Because you get a lot of people saying about the Royal Family. It's not just one or two people, it's a lot of people.
But I think one of us have to really like it to put it up.
Of course, yeah.
Neither of us like it. I mean, the ones we've put up are because one of us at least liked it. Neither of us like this. So I think we should keep it in C. Neither of us are arguing, so we'll leave it in C. Let us know in the comments below if you disagree with us. All right, now we're on to the 2000s, Steve.
Early Doors is the one I'm on about. Absolute abysmal.
All right, so we're on to 2000s, very early 2000s. Coupling. Again, maybe a few people don't know. So I actually watched a documentary about this a couple of months ago because I quite liked it. This was the UK's attempt to do Friends. They saw Friends and thought, that's amazing. We're going to do that, but we're going to do a more sexualized version. And then they tried, because it was quite successful. I think it only ran for 3 series, but it was quite successful. And then in the US, they tried to do a version of it, and it was too sexual for them. It's quite funny. But the actual show itself, I was in my early 20s, I think, when this came out. I actually probably enjoyed it more than Friends, at least for the 3 seasons it ran. And I don't hate Friends. Friends is okay. I like this. I'd go B tier, maybe low A tier. Do you remember this, Steve?
I've heard the name. That's about as far as it goes. I've just looked at a picture of it. I have no idea about any of this whatsoever.
There's some really good episodes. There were some. I think you'd actually quite like this. There's a lot about the sexual dynamics, and taking the piss out of things. I think you'd quite like this, just based on me knowing you. Can we stick it in B? I think.
Yeah, it's your show.
B's fine. Okay. We are now on to... All right, let me look at my notes for this one. This is possibly the comedy that I hate more than any comedy in the world. So there is a family which is portrayed by some brilliant actors. I can't remember their names, but I think the male and the female are like 2 really famous Hollywood actors. The oldest son has gone on to be, I'm sure he was in Hollywood, but he became massive. But I hate this. I hate it. Worst sitcom ever. It's absolutely boring, completely unfunny. So I mean, this isn't even funny. This is so unfunny. It makes me want to shoot myself. I mean, I kind of think of this. I know there was some good comedies came after, but I sort of think of this as the beginning of the end of comedy. It was interesting to figure out because it ran for a bloody long time as well. It was very successful, this show. The Office and stuff came out after it. This is, for me, the bottom of any sitcom list ever, Steve-O. What do you think, man?
I just know about this because of extras. Now, don't get me wrong. I remember at the time it was a show that I really wanted to watch.
Right.
And I vaguely remember it was because of Robert Lindsay's character and Chris Marshall's character.
And they're very talented actors, aren't they? In the grand scheme.
Brilliant in it. Robert Lindsay's brilliant in extras.
What episode was he in of extras? I don't
remember. The 6th episode of series 2. He's in that. You can't remember that.
With the Robert De Niro one.
The sick boy.
With Robert De Niro. I wasn't a fan. That was probably my least favourite episode. We'll get on to extras. That was probably my least favourite episode of extras.
It's amazing. Make them laugh. That's Siobhan Hayes. Yeah, she's been in the bill along with pretty much all of these people. But this show, I legitimately, because of extras, it was on, again, one of these random Freeview channels. And I thought, oh, yeah, My Family. Let's see how funny it really is. And, oh, my God, it is terrible.
Terrible.
It is all it is. Again, it's a bit like One Foot in the Grave, where you've got a woman in Zoe Wanamaker, Susan, basically a character, who will be complaining about something, and Robert Lindsay's character, usually drunk, comes in and says that, don't worry, we'll be able to do it. And then his son comes in, Nick, and is like, and then the other son, who's called Michael, comes along and basically belittles whomever it is because he's like the Will from the Inbeweeners.
The only thing I remember being slightly funny was the older son was constantly trying to get a job, and he was trying all these different jobs and never got.
There's a thing.
That was slightly funny. That was the only slightly tiny funny thing that in it.
You then had the other character, Janie, who the sister, who once again, just none of these characters did anything for me.
No.
But at the time, I do remember thinking it was funny.
Right.
But that's the words again, at the time. Now, does the comedy stand the test of time? Does it? Fuck. And as I keep stating, there's a lot of these sitcoms where people will be like, no, like even yourself, no, it's amazing what you're talking about. And then if you watch it now, it's like, oh, yeah, it's not actually that good.
See your D.
Go on.
What would you put it in? I'd put it in D.
C or D? I'd put it in D, even though I know it won quite a lot of awards.
Yeah. But I'm going to put it ahead of these two because I do remember it did make me laugh. Just the older son, which these two never did. So it's not going to... I'm going to alter my opinion. It's not my worst sitcom of all time, but it's still fucking terrible. All right, so this one, Steve, I'm going to hand over to you. I will just say my piece on this one quickly.
Can I just say The Office should be ahead of Peep Show. Peep Show came out after The Office.
The Office? Okay, all right. Well,
yeah.
Phoenix Nights. So I only ever watched a couple of these. I'm not a big fan of Peter Kay in general.
What?
I don't know. All right, so a lot of these you watched in the 2000s. I went to university in 2003 and didn't finish my PhD until 2011. I watched very, very little TV in that period. So something really had to be good. I did watch The Office. I watched Extras. I watched The IT Crowd. I like all of those. I caught up on the Peep Show a bit later on, but Phoenix Nights never kept my attention. But this is one of those ones I'm not going to rate because I literally probably only ever watched 2 episodes, Steve-O. So this one is completely on you, mate. Do you want to describe it and give us your thoughts?
Well, firstly, we're now into the era of my comedy. Let's take a look at realistic situations in life and just put a comedic spin on it.
Okay.
Almost this. Well, I know Phoenix Nights isn't documentary style, but it does feel like they've just put a camera in front of the various people.
It's like a
in the social club.
Northern nightclub, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a social club. The Phoenix Nights is a social club, and it's run by Brian Potter, and basically him and his mates are trying their best to run the nightclub with competition from Den Perry. I'm literally remembering all this right now, so I'm just literally ad-libbing as I go along. And I definitely didn't watch this at the time because Peter Kay, I can't remember what the bloody show was called, Peter Kay and Friends or something, where he was doing a bit like what you were saying about the Rock Profile. He was doing lots of different characters, which he then reproduced in Phoenix Nights. And for me, yeah, what's it called? It's got to be that Peter Kay thing. And I just didn't get it. I think my dad may have watched it, and I may have just.
Was that a sitcom?
It was a sketch show.
Right.
It wasn't a sitcom. I'm pretty certain it was a sketch show, and he was just playing various characters, which, like I said, he reinvented for Phoenix Nights, and I just didn't get it. I didn't understand it whatsoever. And then my brother, from what I remember, got the DVD, and because the thing is, because at the time you almost were forced to watch DVDs because you've gone out your way to spend hard-earned money on however much it costs, so you felt that you had to. It's a bit like with albums, isn't it? Back in the day, you had to listen to it because you spent your money. And with Phoenix Nights, there's always a point where you go, I get it. I get the humor, and from what I vaguely remember, it's basically when
in an episode or in the whole series.
Well, across the whole whatever series one, and then all of a sudden you go, I get it now. Okay. I understand the humor, and then because you understand that, you can then rewatch it and go, this is just ridiculous and funny.
It's, as I say, I really have no opinion. Is that because it's a northern humor? Is it something specific to the?
No, it's
series?
Just this is why shows like this work so much, is that because I don't think it's just northern centric. It's just the fact that the characters are so ridiculously over the top. But in a realistic setting, you can come across these characters all the time in life. And the episode, I can't remember the direct episode, but all I just remember is when they buy a bouncy castle, and it's Sammy the Snake, and he's like, it's a cock and balls, And that was the moment where I was like, oh yeah, it's just stupid, silly humor, but mixed in with real serious circumstances that are going on. So in The Office, the circumstances are, we're going to be made redundant, and there's comedy around that. In Phoenix Nights, we've just had our nightclub burnt down. We need to rebuild it back up and reopen the Phoenix Club and everything. And Peter Kay's character work is just phenomenal. Him as Brian Potter is just so funny. And, I would argue that Max and Paddy, which is the side show that they did, spin-off, is one of the funniest shows that you can go out your way and watch, because again, the humor, you don't need to know who the characters are, you can just watch it for what it is. It's all been taken down now off YouTube, but Phoenix Nights, I'm not suggesting for one minute it's an S.
Well, let's press you for a tier list.
It's an A. It's definitely an A for me. It's just the characters in it are just so funny, and it's definitely an A.
I'm happy to go with you. Like I said, I've seen like 2 episodes.
But I get why people, it's like with anything, like specifically things like The Office, I get why people don't like it. I fully approve, because it's just too real. It's a bit like The Detectorist. Detectorist isn't a sitcom. It's a comedy drama. It's more drama. But the reason why it's so good is because it's character development, and what makes any TV show good is character development. The reason why...
The thing was, when you dislike the comedian, which I did, there was some good stuff that Peter Kay did, don't get me wrong. That sort of automatically puts you off. And
I can't believe you don't like Peter Kay. That's mental.
All right, let's move on.
So funny.
Let's move on. Okay, all right. So again, I'm going to hand over to you with this one, Steve. I'll read my notes quickly. So this came out when I was doing my PhD, and I literally wasn't watching TV. I did watch 4 or 5 seasons on YouTube in about 2011, and I liked it, but I never got to the end. I like what I watched. I watched it once. I watched 4 or 5 series. I liked it, but again, I mean, it's probably an A for me. But Steve, I'll hand over for you for a bit more context on this one.
Well, firstly, you need to watch the next. You don't really need to watch series 9, but you need to watch series 6, 7, and 8. We're talking about Peep Show, by the way, everybody.
Peep Show, they're not saying.
Peep Show, of course, is about 2 housemates in Jeremy and Mark. Well, technically, Jeremy is Mark's lodger. They're friends from university. And of course, they're, like you mentioned, they've got a bit like Phoenix Nights, The Office, etc. They're surrounded by a bunch of characters which create this huge story, and they're all interconnected with one another. And Peep Show I've watched probably 10 times over. It's because there's so many episodes, it's a lot more difficult to watch than The Office, because The Office is 2 series and a Christmas edition, same as Extras.
Still, I'll say something. This could have been something. Like, I didn't like Peter Kay. I remember these two from, you know, the comedy show, The Number Wanger.
Mitchell and Webb.
The Number Wanger. I loved that. So I probably gave this a lot more chance. Considering I wasn't watching much TV, I probably gave...
Why did you stop watching it?
I was just so busy. I was just so busy.
You need to re-watch it from. It's on Netflix now or whatever. You need to watch it from start to finish again, because Peep Show is, in my opinion, one of those shows that even people like me, for whatever reason, I just forget, despite the fact that I quote it so many times. There are so many scenes where, once again, I'm like, where have I got that from? And it is from Peep Show. And again, it's another show based on some form of reality. All the situations they get into, every single one of us can relate with. And for me, the comedy is just literally from the fact that always having that straight man and some of the dark thoughts that Mark has, and the fact that he's messing up his relationships, and you feel, because of the incredible, because of course it's all done through point of view, and the only way you know what's going on really inside their heads is through their own thought processes and their monologues.
I'm guessing we're going to probably put this in S tier. There is some original, unique. I mean, I don't know how influential. I don't know how influential this has been, but it's definitely
never been recreated.
Sorry?
Never been recreated whatsoever.
But there's some really unique things in there, which I think, like you say, like the POV shots that can put it up into S tier, even if it's.
I also think that with a lot of these comedies like Phoenix Nights, Peep Show, Office, Extras, and so on, is that it feels a bit like wrestling, where they're just playing an over-exaggerated version of themselves. Mark, aka David Mitchell, is basically what David Mitchell is. Whenever you watch him on Have I Got News for You or 8 out of 10 Cats, you just see Mark. Yeah. And any show that David Mitchell does, it's not because I only know him from Peep Show. It's got nothing to do with that. It's like, for instance, with Martin Freeman, I don't see him as Tim in The Responder. I just see him as the police officer that he's performing. Same as Gareth. I don't see him as Gareth in The Detectorist. I see him as Andy. But in Mark, there's something about him where there's so much of David Mitchell in him. And I think the fact that Peep Show went on for so long and was objectively, every series up to series 9 was like a 10 out of 10. I can criticize series 7, but overall it's all perfection.
I've been watching that, and remember that tier list guy we've been watching? He's the one who did the Ricky Gervais tier list, and he ripped into series 9. I mean, he likes the Peep Show, but he ripped apart. Series 9 is terrible. It's really bad. Right. But they had a hiatus. So I think it was like a 3 or 4 year hiatus between series 8 and 9. And for whatever reason, they completely dropped the ball. It didn't feel real. You couldn't suspend your disbelief. A bit like Afterlife. There are things in Afterlife where you're just like, this is just ridiculous and I can't buy into it. And that's what makes any TV show / sitcom for me
good is when you can just suspend your disbelief and believe what's going on and just see the hilarity in what's actually happening in front of you. And again, Peep Show up there again with one of those memed posts on anything that you can do. And yeah, this, I think
S.
It definitely should be an S, yeah.
Unfortunately, the screen is so bloody small. I have to put it in B. C and then put it.
Oh, right, yeah. That's why you pay for it, mate.
Pay for one of these? Really? No. Okay, welcome back, sir. Another slight technical hitch there. So, we're moving on now to the one I believe Steve-O agreed to make this tier list for me just so he could talk about it. So I'll preface this by saying Steve-O, the man joining me, is a big-ish content creator in another field. And basically everyone knows his love for The Office, despite the fact it has nothing to do with the field we're talking about. I'll just say my piece on this one before I hand over to Steve-O. I love it. It was revolutionary. I didn't watch it when it came out at the time, but I love it. I've watched it. I don't love it probably as much as Steve-O, but I've watched this back many times. I told Steve earlier on, I've got great memories of watching this with my two housemates, Anna and Becky, if they're watching. Of course they won't be. And getting stoned and watching this on repeat in my first year at uni. Test here for me, but Steve, I'm going to hand over to you here, mate, for your...
Yeah, we're talking about The Office, and I think what I was going to say about Peep Show as well is that what makes the likes of Phoenix Nights, Alan Partridge, Only Fools and Horses, Fawlty Towers, Inbeweeners, every character matters. Every character matters. A lot of these ones in the C's and the D's, it's just focused on the main stars and that's it. Whereas what makes, in my opinion, sitcoms work is just these side characters that can have such an impact on the main characters. I'll give you a simple example. In The Simpsons, some of the best characters are the ones that don't even exist in the show. For instance, at Itchy and Scratchy World, when Bart goes over to the name tags and he says, "Bored? Who the hell's called Bored?" And then someone just goes, something to do with Bort, and he goes, "Are you talking to me?" "No, my son is also called Bort." I got a laugh out of you because these side characters enhance the main characters, and that's what Peep Show and all the others I've just mentioned does. The Office is again focusing on four main characters in David Brent, Tim, Gareth, and Dawn. Of course, the centerpiece is David Brent. But everybody forgets how important all the random side characters are, even as low down as Sheila.
Wouldn't you call the Gareth? Wouldn't you call him a main character?
That's what I said. Yeah, Gareth,
right, sorry.
David, Tim. Yeah,
sorry.
And all these side characters make the four main stars enhanced even more. And this show has just become part of my language, basically. I cannot go a day without going, at least 20 times. It's beyond parody, the way I quote the show. I don't even sometimes, I know subconsciously, I'm quoting The Office. And then all of a sudden, consciously, I know I'm quoting The Office. And people won't realise that I'm quoting The Office, but I'm using it in a language which fits the context of any conversation. And I actually, you'll be surprised to know, didn't even like The Office. I fucking hated it.
Really?
When it first came out.
There was a lot of people like that because to add a bit of general context, this isn't my context. It was the laughing at awkwardness. That was what this really brought to comedy, wasn't it? It wasn't laughing at a laugh out loud situation. It was laughing at something happening, and then, as you said earlier, the awkward expressions that people would have around Ricky Gervais. His character. It's
the fact we first of all, it's the first documentary style show.
Yeah,
it is done in such a realistic way that you genuinely do feel that it's real. In fact, I vaguely remember, I mean very vaguely remember, this would have been series 2, because I got into it in series 2, so this would have been 2000, 2. And I genuinely thought I was watching a real documentary, because at the time they were showing lots of documentaries like this. The humour, of course, comes from this naive individual in David Brent, who 1 minute he wants to be politically correct, the next minute he doesn't understand that he's not being politically correct, and it just goes on and on and on. And you're laughing at his ignorance to the situation. And you've then got the likes of Tim, who are just basically there to tell us, the audience, like I said earlier, are you seeing what I'm seeing? This is what I've got to put up with every single day.
He's the straight man. He's the viewer, isn't he?
He's the straight. And that's what you need in any comedy. You need a straight man. Like I said, even someone like Rowan, that's a side character in the training day. Like, he is our straight man, just looking at, like, I've just come here to do a training day and I've got this buffoon trying to take over. I just want to get in, get out, gone, but I can't because of the just ludicrous circumstances that are coming up. And yeah, this show I was getting sick of, mainly because of my friends. My friends, we'd go to the pub and they would just constantly quote this, to the point of where I think at some occasions I literally said, if you continue doing this, I'm leaving. I cannot talk to you.
I can imagine now if someone went to the pub with you, it'd be a similar situation.
Yeah. Well, no, back then it was literally all you would do is quote The Office. You wouldn't even talk to one another. You would just literally quote The Office. And like, for instance, the scene in the pub, and all we would do was just reenact the pub scene. And it was actually series 2 where Chris Finch is doing Trudy from Behind, where I realised, I get it. I now understand the humour. Because you've got this, in the actual episode, you've got the character that comes in, and you know, he's the man of the moment, and he's flirting with Trudy and paying her almost these backhanded compliments, so to speak, in quite an aggressive tone. But then eventually he's then having sex with Trudy,
the woman,
the Welsh one.
Okay.
The Welsh one that says to David Brent in the same episode, well, you've let yourself go a bit, haven't you? I've let myself go a bit. You look at the state of you, love, your embarrassment. And yeah, that's when I kind of got it. And then from that moment on, I'm like, now I understand what the hell this show's all about. And this show has influenced so many since. And especially the awkward humour and the documentary style. In fact, I don't think TV comedies now are done without being some form of documentary style handheld camera. Like it does feel like any comedy that I watch now is done in that, not in the literal style of being a documentary, but the way it's filmed is done like that. And
it was very very fashionable at the time to even horror movies and movies. There was a lot of like found footage things. There was a lot of, I guess, people have got so sick of watching real things,
slapstick, stupid, silly comedy like the ones that we've mentioned, that this was just absolutely groundbreaking. It wasn't doing...
Another thing I love about The Office, it's a shame there was only, 12 episodes in the Christmas special?
Yeah.
But because of that, there's no... I mean, we were sending voicemails about our favourite broader shows the other day, and I said to you, there's no fat... Both of our favourite show, not comedy, is Breaking Bad. There was no fat on it because it finished. There is nothing unfunny about this. It is all... And it's genuinely emotional as well. I think I don't know if I cried at the Christmas special when Dawn, in a good way, you know, when Dawn and Tim... Very few comedies have made me cry, and that was when I was an adult. You know, there's a real heartfelt meaning in here, which I don't...
I shed a tear when I first watched it, when Chris Finch gets told to get... When David Brent says to Chris Finch, fuck off. I genuinely had such a powerful emotion at the time. I
Pride
think I
in
did
David
break
Brent.
up a bit. Yeah. And the bit where after that, and then finally you see David Brent, the BBC are now showing David Brent having fun, and you genuinely have a big smile on your face, like he's got his redemption now, and you know, we're really, really happy for the guy. And like you stated, when even now when I watch the Christmas edition, I see Dawn come in, and it is quite a knee jerk. And that's what's so special about the show. It's an undertone of a romance between Tim and Dawn.
It's beautiful, but it's the best romance in... It beats bloody Ross and Rachel hands down, a million times for me.
I mean, I can't comment on that, but it's probably the equivalent of. I mean, that was over 24 series or whatever it is. Whereas obviously in The Office, it was
again
because
it was contained and it was simply told. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And like I stated, a bit like with Breaking Bad, what's so incredible about that, same as Better Call Saul, is that every character matters. There's a reason why that person is standing there. They're not just standing there because they're just a blob in the background, like he says in Extras. There's a reason why they're there. And it's to do something with the main characters, and that's what The Office does so special. And the fact that it came out in 2001.
Yeah, I was surprised it was so early.
And the fact that I can watch it now, it blows my mind. And certainly, even with Extras, when we get onto that, the fact that that's
slowly going to move up.
20 years ago is frightening. It really is. So yeah, The Office rightly takes its place in the S tier list.
Okay. I don't know if we should have Peep Show in there. We'll leave it for now. We'll have a quick chat at the end about the final rating. Okay, again, I'm going to I'll get my opinions on this one. So for this one, it's about... Well, actually, I'll let you introduce it. I'll just say my opinions. I love this show. The cameos, some of the cameos, I mean, me and you talked about them many a time. My favourites would be Patrick Stewart. Who's the gay lad from Lord of the Rings?
Ian
McKellen. I mean, this show is so quotable. Keith Chegwin. I mean, I love it. The only thing I would say is there are episodes that I'm not so fond of, like the Harry Potter guy one.
What?
And
the best episodes.
And the one we mentioned earlier with
Robert Lindsay, Robert De Niro.
Yeah. But for me, it's A tier. But yeah, go ahead and describe it. I should have.
I mean, yeah, it is A tier. It's definitely not S. This, of course, was Extras. It's the second sitcom that Gervais and Merchant created together, and it's a masterpiece in my opinion. Essentially, it's about Andy Millman, a struggling extra, and basically he works his way through. Spoiler alert! But he then has been writing his own sitcom, and then it gets commissioned, and then we go into series 2, where it's all about the sitcom. And then in the Christmas edition, it's all about how Andy is coping with fame. And like you stated, I didn't get Extras. I didn't get it at the time. It made no sense to me whatsoever. Yeah, my understanding of it was, it's... In fact, in life, what's really amazing about Life's Too Short is that the accountant says that, all it felt like was just a bunch of famous people turning up. Well, ironically, that's what Life's Too Short is. It's just a bunch of famous people turning up. That's what's so incredible genius. Anyway, whatever. With Extras, these celebrities, certainly like the likes of Les Dennis, Keith Chegwin, Ian McKellen, Ross Kemp, all British, surprise, surprise, they really did allow themselves to have the piss taken out of them. And really go, especially Les Dennis episode, really get deep with what we can use, because they knew how good Gervais and Merchant are at writing and directing, and
Can I that one with Les Dennis? Because I've not watched. I watched my bits back of Extras that I really like. The celebrity appearances, but I've never watched the whole thing back. Do they mention Amanda Holden at all? It's the fact he was.
No, but. The idea is that Siobhan, who is the girlfriend, is the equivalent of Amanda Holden.
Right, okay. The fact he was with Amanda Holden still blows my bloody...
Yeah, there's a lot of sketches, there's a lot of jokes in that episode which are actually based on reality. That's what's so good about that episode. But that's why I don't think it should go into... Well, it's not an S tier, because unfortunately, a lot of the celebrities used in Extras are of the time / early to late 90s celebrities.
Yeah.
And people, unfortunately, nowadays would be like, who the hell's Kate Winslet? Who the hell is this Les Dennis? Ross Kemp, yeah, maybe, but they wouldn't understand the joke about
the
him
Ross Kemp
being
one,
in EastEnders. Yeah, because at the time, Ross Kemp was only literally known as this hard man that was in EastEnders, and that's what's so clever about Extras, is that it plays off all these stereotypes and what people perceive these celebrities to be. And the fact that they allowed themselves to have the piss taken out of them makes the show so much more worthwhile. And then, of course, in series 2, which I always say to people, I think series 2, if you want to delve into Extras, is the one to really go for, because it's just such stupid humor, and it allows Merchant and Gervais just to have a laugh with the characters and just have a lot of fun with it. And I if I'm feeling really down, which is every day, but in all seriousness, if I'm feeling really down, Extras is my go-to comedy, and I'll usually put on series 2 just to kind of cheer myself up. In fact, the bloopers of Extras are 30 minutes of just some of the funniest corpsing I've ever seen. And it gets tied up, I think, really, really well with Andy Millman saying a speech about what celebrity is and whatnot. And what I always find really fascinating about that speech is it's more applicable to today than it was back then. Back in 2006, 2007, when the Christmas edition came out, celebrity reality TV show was just slowly creeping into the mainstream.
When did it come out?
The Christmas edition.
Yeah.
2007, end of 2006, 2007.
Yeah, because Big Brother was only like the original Big Brother, so the celebrity versions would have been, yeah.
That's right. Well, the celebrity version was started in 2004, I think it was, something like that. And yeah, that speech is so powerful that even to this day, whenever I watch it, it kind of gets a lump in my throat, because again, it's more applicable to today. Just these people so desperate to be famous, and don't get me wrong, I think the ending's a bit cheesy. In fact, Nick of FPL Juice sent me a GIF of the ending for whatever reason, but overall, in my opinion, Extras, I prefer Extras to The Office because of its just hilarity.
Why have we put The Office?
Well, because The Office is one of the greatest sitcoms ever made, and it has such a long, everlasting.
You prefer let's blow
No. I just mean me personally. Okay. If someone was to say, right, you can only choose one, Office or Extras, what is it? I'm choosing Extras because it's funnier. Each scene is Darren Lamb in it, performed by Stephen Merchant, they could easily do a Darren Lamb and Barry from EastEnders.
Oh, he's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah, they could do that like they did with Peter Kay and Paddy McGuinness with Max and Paddy. They could easily do it. They won't do it. It's never going to happen, unfortunately, but they could easily do it. The comedy characters and Extras are just so funny that's why I would prefer watching that to The Office. But The Office is easily obviously an S, and Extras is an A.
Well, we agree on the rating. I was just surprised based on knowing you that that's the case. Anyway, so next one we'll go on to is the IT crowd. So I'll give the intro to this one. I've not written any notes on this one. I have to do it from the top of my head. IT crowd is about some people who do IT. I can't remember the actors' names. I would have written them down. But Richard Amawadi, is it? The Irish actor.
Chris O'Dowd.
They're basically like sort of crazy out there characters, and then the lady, whoever her name is, gets sent down to look after them as the manager. I'm sorry, I've not got a script on this one. And the boss, who's probably the best thing about the series. Have you seen Toast in London or something? This weird sitcom that he's in now. You know, the boss. My brother absolutely loves him. But anyway, and hilarity ensues. So I really like this. It's one that I've watched all the way through. There's some really funny things. I mean, it's written by the same guys who wrote Father Ted. It's not in that league for me. But it's funny. I mean, and you want to talk about lines that have become famous, Steve-O. Have you switched it on and off again? That's you know that you know, there are lines in there. I really like this, but it's not like S tier. This is probably A tier for me.
Yeah, it's one of those where anytime you do a live stream and you're bored out your mind, you go, right, let's just do favourite sitcoms. This, along with Royal Family, pops up all the time, and I'm just like, I've never seen it, and I never will watch it.
It's great, mate. It's great.
When I say I haven't seen it, I mean I haven't given it an opportunity. I've kind of dipped in and out, and I'm like, does nothing for me. That Catherine Parkinson, one of the main characters, who's Jen in it, she's an extras. Is she? And yeah, she's quite literally an extra within it.
Oh, right.
She's the woman that's in episode 2 with the Ross Kemp thing, and she just basically turns around and said, "Oh, she's got diarrhea," you know.
My favourite part of it, my favourite ever clip in it, is the two lads give her this thing. She's doing a presentation, and it's like, you have to impress them in the presentation. And she gives them they give her a little box and say, "This is the internet. You're holding the internet in your hands."
Okay.
Like, basically, so she goes and gives the presentation, and everyone thinks she's an idiot, but everyone actually believes that she is holding the internet. There's some great stuff in there, mate. It's some great stuff.
She stars in the show Humans and also a show called Whites, and I've seen both of them. And she's okay at what she does. There's no oomph to her. She's got a very straight face.
She's the straight guy or straight girl, isn't she?
Yeah, this is the thing. She's also in that show that the guys from, what do you call it, League of Gentlemen did. I've forgotten their Inside Number 9. She's in an episode of that.
Oh, really? I've not seen that.
And she plays it really, really straight, but too straight for me.
Yeah.
And again, these people, I mean, Chris O'Dowd, he was recently in a Black Mirror episode, which was probably the best one of the new series. But
he's made it quite big in Hollywood.
Yeah, he's in Bridesmaids. He's very good in that, actually. But again, it's a TV show that's completely gone past me, and I'm
going to rate it then. Put it in A.
Yeah, I appreciate that from a British sitcom standpoint, why you put it in A.
Okay, the last one. This is another one that completely passed me by. I did not watch this. Did I say this? Yeah, this is going up my second channel. No one will watch it anyway. I slept with a girl who was about 10 years younger than me about 10 years ago, and she absolutely loved it. And
that's when you were 20.
That's when I was 32, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, she was gorgeous, Steve-O. And you know when you go out with a girl 10 years younger. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into that. She made me watch a couple of episodes, and I did really like it. But again, I've never gone back to watch it. I never felt compelled to go back and watch it. I enjoyed what I saw. To Steve-O, I'm going to hand over to you here, mate, again.
I love that you don't mention the names. It's the Inbeweeners, and I'm actually going through it now. I'm going through it literally now, series by series. I'm pretty much going to start watching series 3 tonight, and I get series 2 and 3 mixed up with the episodes in, but that's beside the point. The Inbeweeners, 4 lads, 4 regular, normal lads who basically they are introduced to Will. Will's new to the school, and he's paired up with Simon, one of the main characters, and then of course he's got his best mates in Neil and Jay, and of course Will's then brought along for the ride. And once again, very similar to The Office, Peep Show, and so on and so forth. All the characters in this show matters.
Is it very teenage humour? It seemed...
Well, what is so clever about the Inbetweeners is that even though the guys are in sixth form, they're all 17 in the show. It's more what you get up to when you're in like year 10, year 11.
Really?
And the two creators, Damien Beasley and Ian Morris, them two, as real life people, are extremely immature.
Right. And
they're really close friends with Ricky Gervais. And when them three get together, I heard this on a podcast recently, some old podcast, and basically when them three get together, they become children. And the humour that what you get from the Inbetweeners is what you've just said. It's just teenage humour, American Pie style, ludicrous situations, but they're all still relatively realistic, that you can suspend your disbelief and enjoy it for what it is. And we've all been in these situations where you're trying to sleep with a girl, but you don't know what you're doing, and then obviously whatever happens. Trying to get into the popular girls.
Speak for yourself, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what a girl is. So, trying to get into the popular kids' house party, for instance, and always being turned away, and it focuses, like I said, a lot on what goes on when you're at school. And because Damien and Ian genuinely had such a ridiculous upbringing at school, it's all been thrown into this sitcom. And once again, I think the Inbetweeners absolutely blew up at the time. I mean, when did it come out? 2008, 2009?
Yeah, it was late too. I mean, they made a film out of it, didn't they?
They made two.
Two films as well. Oh.
The 3 series are like you said about Breaking Bad, I think apart from episode 1 of series 3, every single episode is a 10 out of 10, give or take. There's no filler. And the film, the first one, is really enjoyable for what it is. The second one's just, you can just tell that they've made it for Hollywood. You can just tell that. They've done it for an American audience.
If we have a look, just to go on a bit of a tangent, I mean, a few of these have had films. Alan Partridge's film, as much as I love it, was shit. Bottom's
David
film
Brent, Life on the Road,
was shit.
Yeah.
Bottom's film was atrocious. Trying to think of any of these other ones. Probably not any of the other ones. They just don't work as films. They work as, they are half an hour. All of these are half an hour, aren't they? They work.
Well, in between, as the first film was essentially just an extended episode, basically. And it, like I said, it worked. And they could easily now, I think the main actors have literally come out and said, look, if the creators come to us and say, look, we're going to do another film or a special episode where we're going to be doing a stag do, it can be done. It can be done. American Pie Reunion did
Even
it
now,
perfectly.
They're talking about making another one.
No, because a lot of fans like myself think that they could do an extended episode or a film. It could be done because the comedy's so basic. It's just based on reality. The humor comes from reality. And it's, even for me watching it, a lot of the humor, like you said, it's very teenage-like, and it's just very sexual. This is very sexual stuff.
I mean, I'm saying this despite the fact that this was literally introduced to me by one of my ex-girlfriends, but is it very male-orientated? Would females feel excluded?
Females would like it because of the fact that it's just stupid humour, and they could probably relate with it with what boys are like.
Right.
But it is predominantly a male thing. I mean, I remember at the time, like with The Office, like with a lot of TV shows, if you can come away with some form of catchphrase, you've nailed it. And in the Inbetweeners case, things like friends as a simple catchphrase, or bus wankers, those two catchphrases, even though they weren't catchphrases, but they, in pop culture, in society, everybody was doing it. Even to this day, you will see GIFs of people doing the old friends like that. And this, for me, I don't think is an S. I mean, in fact, fuck it. I think it should be an S because of its impact on society. It was, you don't realise how big this was at the time.
Right, so
it was huge.
We're going to have a final look now. So we've done our final tier list. I mean, I think we've got to be careful with that S category. I would argue we should take the Peep Show out.
When I'm looking at it here, yeah, I'd probably put it in A,
yeah. I would probably move Allo Allo down. I'd personally move Phoenix Nights down, but I know you won't want me to.
You cannot put Phoenix down.
Well,
I
I'd
mean,
move
again,
Game On down because it didn't have that bigger impact. And I'm going to move Hyacinth up to there because that's the biggest thing that's annoying me.
what, keeping up appearances?
I think we should move Steptoe and Son up to there.
That's mental.
I think not that I like Steptoe and Son, but I think it just deserves.
When I look at this list, and I look at S tier, I'd argue that if you were to play Pointless, right, and you just have to get one right, or even 100 people getting it right. Fawlty Towers, yeah, only fools and horses, and a part of Fawlty, whatever. There is no way in hell anybody's going to be mentioning Steptoe and Son keeping up appearances.
Well, I did not put them in S. I put them in B.
No. What I mean is that's what I mean. They're too high up.
You want me to keep them in C?
Whereas Royal Family should be up to that B level minimum, ahead of keeping up appearances. Gee, even I think that Royal Family should be ahead of keeping up appearances.
Are we happy?
Well, I'd put keeping up appearances in C, if not D.
All right, we'll keep keeping up appearances should be S tier. Viewers, S tier. Cool. Well, that's it. And we've got quite a nice split there as well, haven't we? And we've given our own individual opinions. I think our own. I mean, we disagreed a lot at the start. I think our opinions became more converged as we went on. But I mean, I think that's a pretty good list. It's a pretty good list. Steve-O, any final thoughts, mate, before we sign off?
Yeah, I think that I'm just gutted that comedy has taken a route in which everybody's too scared to actually put out the comedy that they want to make now. They just go too safe, and it's why I don't like many comedy. The last genuine comedy that I thought was really good for what it was Motherland. Have you seen Motherland? Motherland, I really, really enjoyed. Series 2 is very weak, and the Christmas edition is absolutely morbid. But Series 1 and 3,
when did it come out?
Brilliant. 2016 at a random guess.
You're talking the last comedy you liked is 9 years old.
As in, like, within reason, brand new. Yeah, when did it come out? It came out.
I'm just meaning, mate, like, if the last one you like is 9 years old, that doesn't say much for the last 9 years, does it?
And in fact, it came out maybe a bit later than that, maybe 2018. But even then, though, it's not breaking any boundaries. It's not. I'm not suggesting for there's anything like. But put it this way: the last show that was really breaking boundaries was the Inbeweeners. That's the last one where you could argue had that really risque humour about it. Nowadays, everybody is too scared.
Do you reckon that's political correctness? Because, I mean, a lot of people say that in stand-up.
Of course. Yeah, of course it is. People are too scared because they're worried about being cancelled. It's ludicrous. That's why, for me, ironically, Ricky Gervais has completely gone so far down, in my opinion, because he's gone too overboard going against it, and it just doesn't make sense what he does anymore. Whereas when he was a lot younger, we're talking like 15 years ago, he was a very, very clever comedian, putting his middle finger up to the system. And it's such a shame that comedy writers now aren't really willing to push the boundaries anymore because they're worried that, better not do that.
I think Ricky Gervais says things in order to get, like he made some comment. I mean, he goes on about the trans issue sometimes. Wasn't it in his last one, he made something about a disabled person with cancer almost to get in the headlines. So he does get talked about. My opinion of him is like almost the opposite. It's like he leans into that too much. And a lot of comedians, not just him, rather than actually just trying to be funny. That's my opinion. I mean, I don't know how much that applies to sitcoms because obviously a sitcom is very different than a stand-up performance. But
Of course, yeah, but I can't even think of a sitcom that's come out in recent times where I've gone, I have to watch it. And again, The Detectorists isn't even a sitcom. It's a comedy drama, but it's more drama. And that is probably the last one that it's a bit like Motherland in a way, but Motherland is a sitcom. But I mean, it came out in 2016, Motherland, and Detectorists came out in 2014. But in the last minimum of 5 years, I can't think of anything off the top of my head where I've gone, yeah, I really, really like this. I think this is amazing. Most of the time when people recommend something to me, I watch it and I'm like, no.
I mean, even American sitcoms at this time, I know you might not like them, but Seinfeld, Friends, Frasier, the spin-off from Seinfeld, I can't remember. There were a lot of very good comedies coming out into the 2000s in America as well. It's almost like I don't even think it's a British thing. You know what I mean? It's just a death of sitcoms.
People go on about Curb Your Enthusiasm, and
that's the one
I've watched clips of it, and once again, it's done nothing for me. I just don't.
But you didn't like it. You didn't like Seinfeld.
No, I was like Nick. I just was thinking to myself, "What's so funny about this?" Nothing.
It's written by the same guy, but
yeah.
So I guess our message is: comedy writers, be more inventive. Make some decent fucking sitcoms. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Steve-O, thanks for joining, mate. It's been a pleasure as always, mate. Please do like to help get the video out there. Please subscribe to help me get up to 100 subscribers by the end of the season. This is going to be the first video I've put out on this channel for about 6 months. I am going to try and start making more regular content going forward. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.